All right, and welcome to all my photo printing friends out there. I'm glad to have you guys hanging out with me on this Saturday afternoon. It is beautiful outside, a little hot. Let's see how hot it is. Remember, I am in the Washington, D.C. area, just north, right in after the state line, I guess you can say, into Maryland. So if you guys may know that area there, I'm just northeast of the zoo, the National Zoo. What do we have outside? I was just out there earlier flying one of my drones. I needed a little bit of a relaxation time, if you will. 94. I don't know if you can see that. Let's see. Well, maybe not. You probably cannot. Notice the dragon. Yeah, that's my grandson made me put that as my screen on my phone. I used to have something else, and he said, "Oh no, Grandpa, you need to put one of my favorite pictures on there." And so, of course, you know how it is. I did it. This week has been really good, relaxing in a way. We did have a couple of medical appointments. You know, when you get old, you have to always go see the doctor. My wife had to go see the dermatologist. She has some precancerous skin conditions, so the military does not take care of us anymore as far as dermatology goes. We don't have to pay anything per se, but we have to go to an outside provider. That's only reserved now for once you hit 65 and you go under Medicare, then that, stops. And of course, active duty, get it completely covered. But anyway, don't worry about that. This coming Monday, I'm going to go in for some oral surgery. So I hope I feel okay. I got a couple more ideas that I need to bring forth on video. I did create, I had a little bit of a lucky streak earlier this week. I made, I think it was like 9 videos. One of them was a bit of a rant, but because, anyway, we'll cover that once I do upload it, if I even upload it at all. But I cover some subjects that are, rather interesting. People ask. And the reason, and the thing is not to get annoyed at being asked the same question. What I need to do is make sure that, hey, who's asking these questions? All of these, the same thing every single time. How many times have I covered this? Don't get angry, Joe. Don't go there. Realize that these are new people. You know what that means? Yeah, we're getting a lot of people into this hobby. I think I am about, let me think. Let me see if I can pull that up. I am nearly at 24,600 something, I want to say. Possibly subscribers in the channel, which is fantastic. And on the Facebook group, we are moving up. We are now at 2805. I just added a couple more people. So yeah, that just tells me this field, which was probably, I don't want to say condemned, but destined to disappear. Basically, people were forgetting what a print was, especially, the last maybe couple of generations ago. The digital age hit us and we no longer cared about printing. Of course, we worked in the darkroom, and computers and programs and applications were not really capable of really good digital work until the last 10-15 years anyway. Right now, we are basically at the pinnacle. I don't know how we can get any better than what we have now available, especially when it comes to what? Printers. Printing technology has reached a point where I'm sort of wondering, what else could they bring to the table? How much better can these images, these prints, be? I mean, what could they possibly do? It gets to the point where I worry that the increases in quality will be so minuscule that you would need instruments basically to measure that increase in quality. It's not something that's going to be readily apparent to us, the print viewers. or whoever we show these prints to, it's going to require a very good eye to be able to discern, you know, oh, this new model of the so-and-so is fabulous. Take a look at this. Yeah, no, it's not going to be that kind of day and night, super dramatic change in quality. Yeah, and also, of course, remember that printer companies are getting, maybe it'll go to a high court sometime, I don't know when, but, you know, they're getting pretty tired of us refilling. I don't think the percentage of people who are deciding to go that route is really that high as far as proportions goes. Out of so many thousand models of this particular, sales, if you will, of this particular model are out there, how many of those people are actually, contemplating refilling? So, sure, there's a revenue loss there for these companies. That's how they make their money on those inks. So, but anyway, I have a pretty, I don't want to say pessimistic view about the future when it comes to us continuing to enjoy refilling with the inks of our choice, which is the way it should be. Just like you have a choice to put whatever gasoline or petrol you want in your automobile, we should have that freedom. But I guess not. In other countries, you do have that freedom, but not here. Anyway, enough of that. So I think the time will come very soon when we're just going to be stuck with using OEM unless there's some kind of breakthrough across the world coming up with some kind of methodology. I don't want to use a certain word that will allow you to, enjoy printing at a lower cost. And that doesn't necessarily mean, printing with a loss of pictorial quality. I think you should be able to maintain your pictorial quality on your prints. Again, when you give up something, you'll give it up in longevity. That's always going to be the case, regardless of what you do. But anyway, let's hope that doesn't really happen. The only thing that I worry about is that normally after we have one of these series of electronic shows throughout the country, these printer companies usually are there present to show off their new models or whatever they are pushing. And that did not happen this past year. I saw one like all-in-one Canon printer being displayed at the Vegas show. I didn't go. I just saw videos on that on TV, and on my TV that I watch YouTube on. There was a lot more drone stuff on the electronic show than printing stuff, which is kind of sad. Should have been the other way around. But anyway, let's say howdy to the few folks we have here on board right now. We are at, let's see, 28 people. Okay, that does not reflect what we got on the chat, folks. So please, if this is the first time you come on board, if you're curious about what you're getting into here, go ahead and drop off your name on the chat. Tell us who you are, where you are from, maybe what you are interested in learning, what printers you have, what is your goal in photo printing if you already have one, and so on. If you want to know about specifics about refilling with your particular model, hey, this is your chance. That's what I'm here for. And there are other people here as well that are already extremely experienced in printing using third-party options. By the way, this is not a beer. This is butterscotch beer, non-alcoholic. I love it. I buy it at World Market. It's really, really good. Don't laugh at me, but now that I'm going to hit 70, and by the way, I just have my blood work done. Everything is excellent. I have, LDH of like 65 or something like that, which I think is pretty good for an old codger like me. So what I'm going to be doing And this is something that my wife and I are contemplating. And again, you know, for those of you who are very critical about this, forgive us, but you know, it's all aimed to, you know, either maintain or increase our health. We're gonna start kind of giving up meat, okay? And I know, I mean, I know that that has a certain connotation, but I love to eat veggies, okay? I don't necessarily like certain vegetables, but you know, we're gonna go that route. So we're exploring. We're taking a couple of classes at the hospital. They offer it for free, so why not? Why not try it? And of course, in the last 3 months that we've been doing this, I've already lost 3 pounds, and I'm not even able to exercise the way I used to be able to when I was, you know, a young stud in the Army. Nothing would stop me, and that's not the case any longer, of course. But anyway, so that's something we are going to be trying out. Again, if you guys have any input on that, already practicing not full vegan lifestyle, but you know, partial. I do enjoy a bit of chicken every once in a while, and even before we started this, for the last, gosh, like a couple of years, we've been basically eating probably 5 days out of the week. We'll eat mostly a vegetable type based meals, salads, that type of thing. If we do eat anything animal related, it'll be like tuna or some chicken, some nice chicken breasts, and I always break them. So anyway, that's just a little, maybe too much info if you know what I mean. But anyway, that way you know what I am up to, and I keep you guys informed about, you know, my personal stuff as well, as long as it doesn't get too crazy. I'm sure that, you know, I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. But anyway, so printing today may become a bit more difficult when it comes to using non-original inks, is all I'm trying to say. And I need to call Precisioncolors. We usually get into chats where we discuss all of these things, because of course he's surviving on his business, and his business is all about refilling. So it's something that you have to kind of sit down and not experiment, but explore and adjust your business model, if you will, so that you can continue unless you go ahead and retire, like me. So right now I have let me tell you my list of printers that I have so that you guys are aware. And by the way, I get questions about printers that I know nothing about. I really feel flattered that people think I am an expert on every kind of printer there is, but really I'm not. I'll tell you what I am an expert at. 3800 from Epson, 3880, 2880, and I did have an R2400 as well. That's gone. I had R1900. I now have an R2000, which is the older version of the current P400. So the 2000 is still here. I have the 1400 from Epson. It's a die printer, 6 colors. I have the P800. I got the R3000. And then on the Canon side of things, I have of course, the Pro-100, #1 printer in the world probably, the Pro-10, Pro-1, and the Pro-1000. That's it. And I have several other printers sitting around. I have some printers that I haven't even taken out of the box, some all-in-one type printers. I may go ahead and set it up and run it upstairs for my wife's computer so she can have some way of printing. But anyway, so that is it. I specialize only on photo type printers. And what is a photo printer or a dedicated photo printer? Well, it will have probably more than 4 colors. Okay. Just yesterday, I got an email from a gentleman who's considering buying an Epson SC, I forget the number, but it's a 44-inch wide, wide format printer, big, giant floor model that only uses 5 colors. And I'm thinking, why? Why are you bothering spending over $3,300 for this printer and wondering, oh, what ink should I use? Really, it's unless you're just going to be doing very simple graphic type printing, plotting, that kind of thing, and not continuous tone image printing, that printer simply will not perform to your expectations. The more colors you have, the more nuances your printer can create. The printer will never be able to create as many nuances, tonal, gradations, changes, graduations, is it? I don't know. That your images can contain or probably contain. Your printer is not going to be able to reproduce all of that detail, all of that information. It can come close. So visually to you, it will look, hunky-dory just fine. But technically speaking, all of the information you send to your printer, and the driver then cooks it, if you will, and the print engine figures out through the ICC profile how best to mix the very limited set of colors you have. I think now maximum is probably 12 colors on your top of the line Sure Color printers and some of the older Canon printers. They did not have Chroma Optimizer. They did indeed have 12 colors, including orange, green, yellow, orange, green, red, yellow, blue, I mean, you name it. And then, of course, your blacks and grays. So yeah, the more so-called proprietary colors you have, okay, especially in your primary color so-called wheel, R, G, and B, the better you're off. And why is that? Well, how would you have to create the color red on paper when you have no red ink in your color palette, in your ink palette, right? You would have to mix a certain proportion of magenta with a certain proportion of yellow. And that would create a certain density, depending on the proportional, mix of reddish toward orange toward magenta-ish. Now, if you need a darker density of that, then you have to add some cyan to the mix, okay? Remember, equal amounts of each would create, theoretically, a gray, okay? So you're basically adding a bit of gray to mute down those bright, results you would get from just mixing magenta and yellow in order to create a red. So you add some cyan, that gives you a dark density of red. Okay, that's how it works. So you then use black to accent the composited black that you create with your basic 3 colors of inks. Okay, so if you have a red ink to begin with, that will be a proprietary red ink. Then the print engine says, hey, I don't have to work so hard mixing magenta and yellow to create red, because when I get from yellow to slightly orange to more orange to getting closer to red, and I reach a certain threshold, I can stop using yellow and I can stop using magenta. Okay, and then the red, the real red ink kicks in. The same thing with green. If you have a printer with green ink, again, yellow and cyan create green color. So you would then, if you have a very light yellow green, then you can create that with a little bit of cyan and mostly yellow. That will give you a very yellowish, greenish color. Okay, but when you get closer to real green, at some point, the print engine says, hey, green ink, take over. Okay, I'm stopping, the help. I'm not giving you any more help. So it will stop using cyan. Then all of a sudden you start getting into a slight cyanish green shade, and then it needs some cyan, but it will probably no longer need yellow, you see. The more colors you have, the wider your gamut becomes. In other words, the larger the number of tonalities that the image may contain, regardless of color space, it will be able to reproduce more of that. Not all of it. It's impossible. Inks are limited, okay, by the spectral characteristics of these pigments and dyes. It's limited. It can only do as much as it can do, okay? So it might receive some values that seem like they glow on your screen. They're neon. You know, those are out of gamut. It just cannot reproduce those. So then, in order to help you out, it will allow you to use what's called a rendering intent. You have relative colorimetric is one of them, and then perceptual. Perceptual will take your whole image, every color, in or out of gamut, and squeeze it into that amphitheater, okay? The outside of the building is out of gamut colors. Those people waiting to be seated, those are out of gamut people, okay? And everybody is seated inside. Those in gamut colors are inside. So when you click on perceptual, it says, hey, everyone, get off your seats, move toward the center, pack them in. And it brings those outside colors in. Those colors are no longer the same as they were when they were outside. They have been muted. They have been brought down to an in gamut, condition. The problem is that all of the people colors, right? All of the people had to get up from their seats and fill in every single seat, even the orchestra row, okay? Whether they were supposed to be there or not, okay? So colors will be shifted to sacrifice themselves so that the outside colors can move in and enjoy that in gamut situation. Well, what if you have a portrait? Those skin tones will be shifted. Even though they were not out of gamut, they will be forced to move to allow any other out of gamut color that existed to move in. Now, if you have no out of gamut colors, then you're in like Flint. It'll work. You won't have any problems. But if you tend to edit, artistic license, that's what editing is. If you tend to edit in a non-natural way, meaning that you are increasing saturation beyond the capabilities of the printer or even your monitor to display those colors correctly, you can go crazy with those sliders. You know what I mean? So if you have a heavy hand and, I want those reds and blues to be brilliant, well, your screen has no problem, producing those fluorescent looking colors, but the printer can't. So those colors will be outside of the gamut. When you push them in, guess what? They look dull by comparison to what your monitor, is displaying to you. That's where soft proofing comes in. So that allows you to kind of get an idea using a certain rendering intent what happens to those colors. Now, relative colorimetric. So what that does is anything inside the amphitheater, everybody who is sitting down gets to keep their seat. They do not have to get up and move. They do not have to sacrifice their in gamut status. How about that? So what happens to the out of gamut colors? They're just forced in all at once to the inner wall, if you will, of that amphitheater. So they're not forcing any other color to be shifted. Okay? And once they shift it, they're no longer that value. They actually do shift. They change. So they're just brought in just inside. Is that good or is that bad? Well, it depends on your image. If you have a vast amount of out of gamut colors, then, that neither one will help you. So, but if you do not, if you have normal images and you're editing them at relatively natural looking levels of saturation and color, then we should not have any problems. That's the best way to get not only what the original scene contained, okay, but also what the monitor is displaying to you. So when you perform a soft proofing under those conditions, you will not see such a drastic change in rendition. It's shocking sometimes. People just get all bent out of shape when they see, oh my gosh, this is gonna look so dull and so bad. That's because everything else just got moved. How about that? Is that interesting for you guys? I hope you guys enjoyed that. But that is something very important. And again, the more colors you have, the more of a chance you will have to be able to reproduce colors that may be, borderline, okay? Pro 1000, 2000, 4000, 6000. It has blue and not what we call cyan blue. No, that's not blue. The sky is not blue. The sky is cyan. Blue is actually more closer to like purple. If you look at a really good rendition of a rainbow, let's just say, what we call indigo, that's blue. The farthest, left of the spectrum. This way is right. I guess that way, if you're looking at me, that way is red. This way is blue. And then violet, ultraviolet. Okay, so blue is more like purple. Blue ink looks like purple ink, okay, to you when you visualize it. What if you're printing a seascape that you just, you got out of hand and you edited that sucker till those blues were just intense? Well, my Pro 1, which uses 12 colors, Canon, it just won't be able to handle those blues. It just cannot. It can't reproduce those blues simply with cyan and magenta, for instance. It just cannot. So the Pro 1000 has that dedicated blue. And that is one of the cases where you will actually see a day and night difference, okay? If your image does not contain that demand for a really, really intense blue, purple, dark lavender, that type of thing, then you may not see the advantage of having a dedicated blue ink. The same thing goes with a printer with red. Now, the Pro 1000, the Pro 1, has red ink. It does not have orange, though. The EPSON R2000 and the P400 has red and orange. So it favors that region of the spectrum. It can reproduce better than just about anything out there. That particular region is going to fall short on the blue ultraviolet region. Okay, that part of the spectrum is going to fall short because it just cannot rely on just cyan and magenta to do that job. It would also need a blue ink. And so you can't have your cake and eat it too. Some printers will be able to favor certain areas. Some printers will be able to, just excel at reproducing colors in certain regions. Okay, so the P800 supposedly excelled at reds and oranges, magentas, reds, and oranges. Maybe it did, maybe it did not. Okay, I really did not see a huge difference. Simply, I was just printing one of these images. This is what I test all my printers with. And so, if I was to see a huge difference, I should have seen it there, because that so-called image has some out-of-gamut colors as well. You should be able to tell whether a printer can handle that sort of demand. In other words, your regular images, not a problem. If you have images with relatively natural looking colors, okay, not super intense, just about any printer is going to give you good results, period. It's when you get you get to that range of super saturated, bordering around the so-called out-of-gamut region, that's when you will see the difference. That's when you will see a particular printer excelling at something. A printer with lots of gray inks, okay, excels basically at what? At producing really gradual tone changes. So your gray inks come into play for that. Also, the ability to have a printer with light versions of cyan and magenta. It doesn't need to have a light version of yellow. It just does not need it. They have figured out that cyan, light magenta performs magic on printers. Now, when you couple that with at least 2 grays, oh boy, then you really reach a certain level. Just like the P800 with 3 grays, 2 blacks. That's a 5 monochrome ink set right there for you. So what does that mean? The grays lower the demand of the light magentas and light cyans. Okay, simple. And on some printers, they've actually done away with light cyan by simply introducing a gray ink. So it's all about the ink set. It's all about the print engine. It's all about the programming. And, you know, are you going to see huge differences that will make you say, oh, you know what? I cannot consider this model because this model over here is day and night better than this one. No, you know, this day and age, the differences are so slight. And this is what I keep saying, that increases in quality that you will be able to see with your eyes are going to become something of the past. We've already advanced to the point where, you know, what can they do for us? Well, they can possibly introduce some features. That's about it. Performance is already there. It's amazing. It's like with camera lenses. I mean, you know, let me give you a little bit of theory with camera lenses. And I will then sort of match that with printers in resolution, if you will. So a lens can resolve a certain amount of detail. And of course, you got to be scientific about it. So you set up this wall with these so-called resolution charts. And all those are sets of white and black bars, very, very sharp. These are specifically made for this. And just like an eye chart, when you go get your eyes checked and you got to read those E's and tell the doctor if they're this way or that way or this way, and they come in different sizes. These bars come in certain frequencies. So they start rather large. They get smaller and smaller and smaller. Even the tiny ones are still beautifully discernible. Black, white, black, white, black, white, like that. Now, you set up your camera with film. This is what we used to do. Camera with film at a certain distance. You have to align everything perfectly. You have to light that wall perfectly even. And then you begin to shoot on an extremely heavy tripod to reduce any influence from the mirror on your camera or the shutter opening and closing, any kind of vibration that might take place. You use super fine grain film, almost like microfilm, and you want to see what that lens can do. How small a set of lines can the lens optically project, okay, optically project onto my film. If the film's resolution power exceeds that of the lens, okay, then you should be able to max out the lens's resolution capabilities. But if the film is not able to resolve what the lens can resolve, and I'm going to tie that into cameras and sensors in a second here, then you will not be able to tell what the capabilities of that lens could have been, because you reach a point where the film can no longer show you, you know, discernible lines. Okay, it just becomes a blur. So we get into digital. So now we have no film, we have a sensor. And that sensor has so many pixels this way, so many pixels this way. Sensors, little tiny sensory components that will detect RGB. Okay. And when the image is processed, you get a little square. Okay, that's a pixel. And so if I was to shoot that same wall with a lens, then my sensor would be like film, and that sensor could possibly limit how much I can, how far I can go with my particular lens. I could have the best lens in the world, but the sensor cannot, display the abilities of the lens, because the lens resolving power will exceed the sensor's resolving power. That's like film. If the film has coarse grain, then I cannot see fine lines. All I see is grain mush. But if my film has super smooth and fine grain, then I may be able to, show you what the lens is capable of reproducing. You get it? So it's all combined. So here's what happens with cameras now. You may have 24 megapixel. That's what my little Nikon camera has. Yeah, fine. But if my lens cannot produce or cannot resolve enough detail to take advantage of the 24 megapixels, I might as well be shooting on a 12 megapixel camera. You see what I mean? So it's about glass and the sensor. Now, printers will lay down dots. People mistakenly call those pixels. They're not. They're just dots. A dot can be composed of several pixels of image information. Okay? As many as I've heard 16 pixels can create a dot, because dots are variable in size, variable in diameter. And also when a dot, an individual dot hits the paper, just like when you drop something on paper towel or glass will keep that little dot intact pretty much. Paper towel will cause it to wick away and become 3-4 times larger diameter. It wicks away. So a dot, depending on the size of the dot the printer produces, and they have variable dot technology or variable dot size technology or diameter in microliters. It depends. So for an area that's going to contain a solid color, the printer might decide to create larger dots. In other words, I can fill this area here with this particular value a lot easier by laying down big old drops of ink. You still won't see them. You still won't be able to tell. But it'll just lay down larger drops of ink, and they will blend together and create a nice smooth area of a single color. But when you have areas of super fine detail, it cannot use big fat dots. It has to use, very, very tiny dots to be able to create those edges that tells your brain through your eyeballs, yeah, this is a finely detailed area of this image. So it's amazing. The variable dot technology that the printers, have built in allows the printer, I should say, to best manage how the heck am I going to produce that image you sent to me. What do I have to do? What do I have to orchestrate? It's amazing. The more you sit down to figure that out, the more you will appreciate your printer, because the technology built into these machines is ridiculous. Okay, lens to film, piece of cake, nothing to it. Okay, but image information to a printer, that printer has to go through every hoop in the world to be able to produce what you wanted to produce. In other words, what you are seeing, and you spend half an hour editing. That's what you want as a goal. And in order to do that, it just has to go through all sorts of algorithms and computing, and oh, good Lord, it's amazing. It's amazing. The easier it is, the better your results it is. And easy, I mean inkset that is matched to each other. It would be like 9 siblings getting along famously, instead of 9 siblings constantly fighting. Nothing gets done. So what does that mean, color matching? This is a case where magenta is not magenta, is not magenta, is not magenta. Okay. If you get bottles, sometimes it's impossible to get OEM in bottles, but if you would be able to get OEM in bottles, glass bottles, so you got a nice clear view of the contents, you will notice that on every single ink set for a particular printer family, magenta will look slightly different. How can that be? Yellow will look different. All the yellows will not match. All of the cyans will not match. Okay? On dye ink printers, black is actually, I would call it a deep blue, because it looks purple. When you drop one, drop a little bit of black dye ink in a glass of water and let it permeate, you will see nothing but purple. See what I mean? So it's the mixing of all of these colors together is what makes the final results look so natural. And that is done by the print engine. Okay, magical. Yes, it is. It blows my mind, the technology behind these printers. So I really do, maybe I get a little bit deeper into this sort of thing than most people do. But, it just marvels me, the technology that we have available today, whether it's cameras, lenses, and in this case, printers. All right. Whew, I got to get a drink. We have 30 people on board right now. Let's go ahead and welcome everybody. I should have done that in the beginning. My bad. Charles Verbruggen, Belgium, Antwerp. Laureen Marmer. I think, were you here once before, Laureen? Lauren, not Laureen. Lauren from North Carolina, Raleigh. Julio Cesar Garcia Vargas. Hola, quisiera saber de la Canon Pro-1000. He's saying he would like to know more about the Canon Pro-1000. Dime lo que quieres saber y yo te lo explico en inglés. Tienes que practicar tu inglés, hermano, okay? You have to practice your English, just like I did when I came here from Puerto Rico. But anyway, you could also email me. You can find that on my channel, and we'll talk about that. But what is it that you want to know about the Pro-1000? I have lots of videos. Tengo un montón de videos. Look them up on the playlist for the Pro-1000. All right, John Fletcher from England is here with us. Oh, John, since you're in the UK right now, what is the time difference? Is it 7 hours right now or 8? I have a friend that just landed in London this morning, and they're heading over to Norwich. They're going to be performing at the Norwich Cathedral. And so I'm just curious about the time frame. I know I was there before and all of that, but I've lost track of that information. So if you can feed me that info, I'll tell my wife what the time differences are. Jeff Thompson from Louisiana. Spike 597 from Madison, Wisconsin. Amos Canzoni, of course, is here from the Pacific, beautiful and sometimes quite wet Pacific Northwest. Anthony Petit from Killeen, Texas. Eufabone, wow, that's interesting. Ontario, Canada. Julio Cesar Garcia says, ¿hablas español? Sí, yo hablo español. Eli is here. Rob Van Gelder is here from Amsterdam. All right. Julio Cesar says that he would love to see my videos in Spanish. I do have some videos in Spanish. Look up a channel called Aquí se habla impresoras. Yeah. Impresoras. Aquí se habla impresoras. Así se llama el canal. Tengo como media docena de videos. All right. I told him that I have a channel with some videos in Spanish, and I got to do more of that. The problem is that I just don't know the technical lingo in Spanish, so it would be more like Spanglish. I think that would still work, but, I got to find the time to be able to do that. That's the hardest part right there. Geraldo One, or I, One, hello from Pennsylvania. Julio says he's from Cuba and he has a Canon Pro-1000 and he wants to know more about her. And it is a lady. Yes, you're right about that. Alauna Thornton. Alauna. Hello, Alauna from Lawrence, Kansas. I just bought a Canon Pro-10 for pictures. I bought an EPSON 2750. I want to use for sublimation printing. I'm waiting on my EPSON to arrive. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to show you two sources for good sublimation inks. As long as the printer is able to be used with refillable cartridges, and it is an EPSON printer, not a Canon printer. Canon printers cannot be used with sublimation inks. The printhead would not survive the episode, okay? So yeah, EPSON refillable cartridges, as long as the EPSON is not locked from having, allowing you to use third-party type products, you're all set. I will cover that. I have it actually saved here as a bookmark. We'll be talking about that in a bit. It's a wonderful process, not just for making mugs, folks, or t-shirts or anything else that you associate with sublimation printing. Printing on aluminum plate, that's where it's really at, imaging. And if you give me a few seconds when I get started talking about that, I'll go back there and bring a few examples. I didn't know we were going to talk about that tonight. Anyway, Harold Goldberg from Richmond, Virginia. It's about 90 miles away from me. Skylord Fun Happy. What a pleasure to learn with you, sir. You are like Bob Ross. Oh, man. Nobody can be like Bob Ross. Come on. If only I had that hair. Can you imagine having a big fro like that? Jeez. The Bob Ross of printing, thank you so much to share your knowledge with us. Greetings from Portugal. Portugal, wow, okay. I found out that I'm 43% Portuguese from Portugal. Yes. My father came from Galicia, Spain. And I guess his people probably migrated from Portugal. And so I have my DNA done. And to my surprise, I'm a lot more, 4 times more Portuguese than I am Spanish. Oh, well, anyway, I have to learn the language now, yes. 1066 Internet. Is that a CD duplicator behind you? Silver box under. Actually, yes, it is. Yeah. It's an old one that I had. It's absolutely dead right now. It does not work. And besides, it has. Remember the way we used to connect drives in the old days? Yeah. That way is not your modern connection. So it just doesn't operate whatsoever. But I have a new one right here. Not new, but it's a few years old. Right next to me, right here. The reason I have that. I produce instructional DVDs on machining, micro machining. And so I sell these through a machining company out in Pasadena, California. And I also take orders. So this is what I do. This is originally my little side business that I created back in the day. In 72 is when I started. I used to do VHS tapes that I used to sell, very bulky. And then super bad DVDs on my computer, one at a time, which was ridiculous. That's when I discovered, duplication towers. And so I use a Primera Bravo 2 for printing onto the discs. And I was able to hack a way to allow me to not use the original OEM Primera cartridges, which are really Lexmark. That's what they sell you for 3 times the cost. And so all it takes is a special barcode that I was able to reproduce, and it works like a champ. So anyway, so yeah, that thing needs to go to the recycling center. All right, so Tom Volek is here tonight. Hello, Tom. He says, are you talking about monitors in sRGB or Adobe RGB? I have the monitor, tell you the truth, I don't even know what the monitor's color space is. I really don't care. I calibrate it with either this or the much better one, the i1 Pro 2, and I set it to work under Adobe RGB 1998 in Photoshop. So when I work in Photoshop, it's working in that particular color space. I have no trouble matching what I have here to my results on all of those printers that I mentioned, by the way, earlier. If you were here earlier, I think I mentioned about 13 printers. So the whole idea is to have at least Adobe RGB, as your working color space. Now you can work in Lightroom and in Qimage directly from your raw files, so there is no conversion or reduction in quality, if you will, by exporting to an actual file format. You actually sort of virtually work off of the raw image. Wonderful way to work. There's no degradation of image or what would you call it, bitrate, any of that stuff. Yeah, again, I'm not a color engineer, so I'm not an expert when it comes to all of that stuff, all of that jargon. The goal, of course, what they call the gold standard is matching what you have here. Your print matches the same image on your monitor. That's it. If you can do that, if your fever thermometer reads 98.6 and you have a control water bath heated exactly to 98.6 and you stick that thermometer in there and it displays 98.6, that's it. You're ready to go. Now, if you have a fever and your actual temperature is at 100 and the thermometer tells you it's at 100, you can trust it. So I can trust my monitor because I calibrated it to match this result. And this is the result I got out of what? The Pro 100 with PC Signature Edition inks on matte paper. That's it. It doesn't require NASA, rocket science to do this. It really does not. Okay, let's see. What Amos Consoni says, what printer would be preferable best for gallery quality black and white printing with pigment inks? P800, or you just mentioned, like the P800 you just mentioned? Yeah, the P800, the Pro-1000, those printers are at a certain caliber that is, say, higher than a Pro-10. The Pro-1, same thing, but forget about the Pro-1. It's now gone. No one is selling, nor do they have new Pro-1s in box. And besides, they don't use user replaceable ink cartridges, so waste ink cartridges, that is. So they have a limitation as to how many years you can use them before that's it. They don't even have the brand new path to replace the soiled ones. It's a failure right now, because unless you bought a few of them and you had them stashed away, yeah. I have one, but who knows what the future of that printer is going to be. So my Pro-1000 is my go-to printer right now. P800 is my other go-to printer when it comes to Epson and Canon. So yeah, those two printers would be fantastic for gallery quality black and white prints. Again, it's all up to you as well, as far as your workflow. The printer can only do so much. The printer will produce what you feed it. Okay, so if the printer is accurately reproducing what you feed it, then whatever slight differences your images may have, your printer should be able to reproduce them. So it will reflect what you have, good or bad, okay? But you know, the beauty about photo printing at home is that, hey, if you don't like what you get, you just make a slight adjustment and reprint. Imagine having to go back and forth to your local lab or maybe a lab online, okay? That would not be fun. To have to wait days, you know, back and forth with people that don't believe you anyway, what you say. You know, you're the best judge when it comes to print quality. So it's your image. So you may have problems with technicians that don't quite agree with you. So the best way to do this is to accept the cost, accept the commitment, what you got to, you know, what you're getting into, in other words, and just do it yourself at home, because you can do things instantly. You don't like it? Change it. Simple as that. As long as your printer's performance stays constant, then your baseline, your control is your monitor, because that's what you're using to visualize your edits. The printer will print the same thing over and over and over and over again, okay? Unless something happens to the printer internally. The printer will just continue to print the same results. Okay, so the differences in your output will depend on the differences on your images. Simple. Got 41 people. Has everyone said hello tonight, please? And don't forget to hit the like button. You are watching me on YouTube. There should be a thumbs up there. Click that thumbs up, please. That way the algorithm, that way YouTube sees that this live stream has a certain degree of interest from the viewing public, and it will randomly then suggest it to people who are just looking for stuff about printing. They may not even know we exist here, but you know, it will allow the algorithm to then favor this particular live stream. Live streams are very difficult to make them succeed within the realm of YouTube. But yeah, so again, all it takes is very little effort. Just click on that little thumbs up. I don't think you would want to click this one, right? I mean, I think we're doing a good job here. I think at least I know I'm helping some folks here. Again, sounds like I'm begging, but you know, it does help. It does help. And it takes very little effort. All right. Amos says okay. Referring to the P800, 17-inch wide capacity printer. 1066 Internet says it sure is, with roll feed option if you need it. Okay, so here's one advantage of the P800 over the Pro-1000. Very simple. That Pro-1000 would be like the perfect freaking printer, okay, if it had roll option. That means that it will be able to then also print beyond 25 inches, okay, in total length. That would be like the bee's knee, as my wife says, okay. Unfortunately, that's not the case. But at least it has a user replaceable waste ink cartridge, which means that your printer won't be rendered unusable the minute, you know, like with the other printers, they have internal pads. When those are full, it is done. Stick a fork in it, it's done. You know, you take it in for resetting and cleaning, it costs as much as the printer. So, you know, it really is built-in obsolescence, maybe, I don't know, maybe, you know, but again, when will that happen? Knock on wood, Pro-100 right now, it's August coming up. That'll be mid-August is when I set it up. And so it'll be 6 years. And so far, so good. Now, I don't print as often as I used to on it. I really got to get my butt in gear and start printing on it, because I got those inks from Precisioncolors burning a hole in me. So I need to continue to print on that printer and put those inks to a few more testing situations with other papers and such, just to see how the dye inks perform. We know that they perform wonderfully on glossy papers and, you know, luster type papers, whether they are Barita based or RC coated. But we want to also see if they perform well on matte media and other fine art type matte media, including watercolor and all of that stuff. So anyway, yeah, P800 with a roll adapter. Good Lord, that is like the perfect printer right now, if you ask me. Never before did we have a 17-inch capacity printer. See, roll capabilities only existed basically for 24-inch wide printers, except for the so-called Pro 4900. That had roll, I believe. Maybe. I don't remember. I really didn't deal with that too much, but I believe it had roll. And the then now replacement for that printer is the P5000. I know it's 17-inch wide only, but I'm not quite sure if it allows you, if it has built-in roll capabilities. But the P800, good Lord, 17-inch right now. And I know you can print at least 100 and something, 36 something inches. The driver allows you to create a custom paper size that is 17 by 590 inches. But I think Windows limits you to the actual length that you can print. But, you know, imagine, nobody's going to print 100 and whatever, you know, inch print. Come on, you know. Yeah. Imagine the size of the image you have to produce. How many images you have to stitch together in order to be able to generate an image that will fit that particular size. Crazy. Max 2000 is here from the Valley. Hi. What valley is that? Death Valley? I don't know. Lauren says, yes, I hear a few times before. Thank you. I was here a few times before. Yeah, I think I remember you. We don't get a lot of ladies here. I assume Lauren is a lady, right? We don't get a lot of ladies here. I am just dying for this hobby or craft to spread across the board evenly. I actually looked at my demographics on YouTube, and it did show an increase in female versus male. And this should not be a male, you know, dominated field. It should be 50-50. Max 2000 from the Valley. Cliff Medina is here. 1066 internet time here in the UK is 22:44. Okay, so that would be 10:44. Okay, and that was at a while back, so that was not right now. All right, that's not too much difference actually. All right, Jason Machen from Georgia. Jose, you and I are old enough to really appreciate all the advances in photography in the last half century. Yeah, see, if you were born in the late 40s, like I was born in 49, then that means that there wasn't even that many 35mm cameras around in the Army. All I used were 4x5 type cut film cameras, the big Graflex cameras that the news people used to wear, you know, around their necks, and, you know, those big old flash bulbs. That's what I used. And when Vietnam came, then the photographers in the Army began to use Nikon cameras. The Nikon F2 was the camera to use in the field. And so we migrated over to 35mm. And then when the, you know, advent of digital type imagery came around, we hated it. We just hated it. It wasn't really, well, of course, it was horrible. I mean, you could see, you know, anything angular had huge pixel steps on it, you know. So things progressed just like computers progressed. I remember seeing a 40 gigabyte, not terabyte, 40 gigabyte hard drive for $500. And that was supposed to be good. You see, what do you get now? You can buy two terabyte for $90, you know, or whatever. And just go to the local store and buy one of those like that for under $100. But you know, yeah, things do move rapidly. But at some point, there is the so-called diminishing returns, where you cannot advance anymore. It's like with when I was getting ready to tell you guys about, we were talking about lens resolution. So resolution is limited by the wavelength of a ray of light. So the narrowest color would be that violet, okay? So realistically, you cannot resolve anything smaller than your narrowest wavelength color, wave of light, okay? Electron microscopy, you cannot, resolve anything smaller than what those electrons can produce. Theoretically, okay, I accept that, but who can see an electron anyway, right? But anyway, so yeah, so there is limitations, and right now the lenses have reached a point where, what else can they do? What else can they do? I'm waiting for a lens to perform exactly optimally, no aberrations whatsoever, from full aperture to the smallest aperture, and from the widest zoom range to the longest zoom range. That's not going to happen. I don't think they'll ever reach that point. One of those calls, we'll just let it ring. Anyway, so yeah, things are getting better, but it's going to be a lot slower. Progression is going to be a lot slower now. So for those of you who currently own printers that are blessed with the ability to use third-party inks, if they are still available for sale and you can grab extra ones, it might behoove you to get one and put it away. Because, again, I don't want to be pessimistic, but I don't think there's going to be like anything coming out of the EPSON company that will also allow you to use third-party inks. What's going to come after the P800? Anyone have any idea? I really don't know. They might add a built-in roll adapter. Who knows what's going to come? What else can they provide you? The P800 has straight path. You can feed something as thick as 1.5 or 6 millimeters in thickness. Okay, through the front, straight travel. That means you have to open up the back so that the material can go in from the front, be taken all the way to the back, and then be fed forward as it has been printing on. Yeah, that's pretty thick stuff. That's like board. Okay, so, and yet it can print on just about any type of media you can come up with. Do it successfully. It has roll capabilities. It does not have a cutter on that adapter, so you're cutting yourself with a knife, a blade, a pair of scissors. But so convenient. Good Lord, I got a roll of Red River Polar Gloss on there, Polar Luster, sorry, on there right now. I got it as a it was a sale item. I think I paid $47 for a 100-foot roll, 17-inch wide, 3-inch core paper roll. Yeah, I can print till the cows come home with that roll. And all I gotta do is keep topping off my cartridges. Ooh, it keeps calling. All right, I have no clue who that is, but my wife answered it. So anyway, yeah. So what's going to happen to the P800? What's going to replace it? I have no clue. I haven't even looked, because I have no reason to look, at the whole family of larger than the P800 family of sure color printers. I'm looking only from the P800 to 600 to the 400 family, that range. Not only because of my limitations here, but also I have no need to own a 24-inch wide printer. I don't do this for a living, so I have no need for it. If I ever need a print that wide, I send it out. I got a place down the road that'll do it for me. So I really don't need to be housing something that large here. So I haven't really spent much time exploring other types of Sure color printers. But yeah, they're all extremely capable. If you have the need for 24-inch capacity, then yeah, get one of those. If you love Canon, the Pro-1000 will fit the bill. The results, as you have seen on my videos from either one, are just fantastic. Without much trying on my part, I get, incredible results with those two printers. So what else would you need? I really, when you think about it, you really don't need anything more than that. Either one of those printers will suffice. So let's see. JTS Golf from Southern California is here. Henry Stoffel from 100 Degree F Wells, Maine. Is that Fall Wells, Maine? Hey, 100 degrees up in Maine? Wow. Flipside Image Works from New Hampshire. XX Stu 156 from England. Paul Sahota. Let's see. Yeah. Sahota. Sahota. From Paul Sahota. Let's see. Paul Sahota in Houston, visiting from London, UK. Wow. Okay. Tom Volek. Jose, in the Navy, I had to take a color test. I was the only one to get 100%. Have you ever taken one? I got like 90 something percent. I wasn't perfect, I have to admit. But I was able to really discern slight differences in tonalities. It's quite amazing. Most people will fail that test miserably. But again, those of you who have the ability, you get 100% one of those color tests. Wow. Look up on Google visual color test and see what you get, and go ahead and take one of those, and that'll give you a really good idea how well you can discern colors. Of course, it all depends on in this day and age, you're depending on your monitor to display that to you. So again, how accurate is your monitor? Maybe two slightly different shades will look the same, and so that will be your monitor's fault. But anyway, yeah, those tests are really interesting, and they do tell you a lot about your visual abilities. Especially if you're going to get into photo printing. How about that? When I worked at the Pentagon, we worked in a special color lab that did all the presidential photography. And we're the ones that make sure that every president's skin tone was matched perfectly, regardless of what the other people's skin tones were. We had to match those. We did all of the photography for the Arlington Cemetery ceremonies. And yeah, we had one individual whose only job was QC or QA. Every single print we produced went to him. He went to a special viewing booth and examined your print and told you, go back in the lab and reduce your yellow slider on we have manual filter systems on our enlargers, and reduce it by X amount. And guess what? It would come out perfect. So that's the kind of acuity that person had, and that's why he did that job. None of us qualify for that job. Only he did. So there are some people that have that ability. Larry Modzelowski from Cleveland, trying to stay cool. 106 degrees. Good Lord. It hit 99 here. My wife and I went shopping. We went to Trader Joe's today for some goodies, something to just change our in the rut type eating habits. And yeah, it was almost 100, but not quite. It didn't quite make it. And on our way home where we live, it actually did drop a few degrees. Max 2000 from the Valley. Have you ever thought about building your own printer? No, I haven't. How would I go about doing that? You know, how would I do that? I just can't even imagine. Alrighty. He is in Wales. Max 2000, by the way. Eli, I just bought a 10 terabyte hard drive for $150 on Amazon. You see what I mean? Yeah, ridiculous. Like, where is this going to stop? The volume that you can now store. There is no more need for you guys to, you know, I wouldn't say complain, but worry. Let's just say worry about like editing your raw files or even studying. See, the thing is, raw files are big size-wise as far as the amount of space they take on your hard drive. So a lot of people make the mistake to convert to JPEG, which is about 1/10 of the size. You don't have to worry about that anymore. 10 terabytes. Now, the problem with something that big is if that file, that hard drive goes bad, yeah, imagine the loss. So I'd rather have several smaller hard drives than just one humongous one. And that's no criticism to you, Eli. I wouldn't be able to pass that up either if I had seen it. But anyway, yeah, so Max 2000 from the Valley says, have you ever been to the UK? Actually, I was there visiting one time when I was in Belgium. I worked with NATO in Belgium for 3 years in the 80, 81, 82, 83, actually, mid-80s to mid-83. Our son was born in Belgium, and we did hit London a few times. But when I was in Special Forces, we did do a lot of war games, and our central headquarters was based at Lakenheath, RAF Lakenheath, and RAF Sculthorpe, very close to King's Lynn, very close to Norwich, where my friend is presently there this morning, was presently there this morning for her performance at the Norwich Cathedral. So yeah, I've been there, loved it, absolutely. Loved the whole thing. Went to the, see, where I had been stationed before, there was no such thing as the so-called Saturday morning open air markets. I think that's something in the East Coast of the United States. Back west where I was living, we didn't have anything like that. So, of course, that's a every weekend thing in England. So, enjoyed it tremendously. I went to see lots of the sites. We didn't have a lot of time off. We had to work 10 days on and 2 days off. 2 days off, 10 days on, 12 hours on, 12 hours off. So whenever we had a chance, we'd get into our rental car that we had. Actually, we rented a car from local people there. Yeah, at a month at a time. We were only there for 3 months. It was a big NATO war games type thing scenario. Most of it was actually virtual. So loved it. And definitely would love to go back. Jacob Peralta. Hi, Jose. Well, I expect the P800 to evolve into a dual black line feed finally. I hate to tell you, but I highly doubt that. And the reason I doubt that is because they would either have to do one of two things. Take away a gray, for instance. If you don't want to alter the existing real color ink palette, you would have to take away one of those three grays. You have gray, you have light gray, and light gray. And they would have to do a redesigning of the print engine, take away one of the light grays, and then, you know, assign that to matte black. Okay? That would be the only way. I don't know. The other way would be to design a brand new 9-color printhead. That ain't going to happen. That is just not going to happen. I hate to tell you guys. So we are kind of, you know, stuck with the black ink switch system. In fact, the 8-channel printhead in its many iterations is being used for the longest time so far. Now, the others printhead, I think, is an 11-channel printhead that's using some of the larger Sure color printers that use 11 colors. But there is no 9 color print head that Epson right now has, or is even thinking about producing. So that's all I can tell you, and it is not, I know it's not what you and I want to hear, but that's the whole truth. The P800 has a newly designed black ink switch valve, though. It's supposed to have been improved, and it may not suffer from the problems of earlier versions of it. So that means also the so-called P600, I'm sorry, would have that same, newly designed, if you were, or improved black ink switch valve. Thomas Kufari says, you guys are wimps. 107 is the average here in Arizona. Yeah, but it's that dry heat. Yeah, I'm kidding. Yeah. Goes below 100 and we need sweaters. That's funny. But true. It's funny but true. Eli, I have it backed up with 2 other drives and the cloud. Awesome. That's the way to do it. There's really no excuse, and I'm the biggest culprit when it comes to not backing up as I should be backing up. The raw files from my new camera are around 100 megabytes. It shoots 10 frames per second, so every second of shooting is 1 gigabyte. Can you believe that nowadays? I mean, come on, that's crazy. Max 2000 from the Valley, cool, man. 1066 Internet, has anyone ever heard of the modern Epson switch valve failing? I think it's a thing of the past. Yeah, it might very well be. Actually, even my 3800, 3880 valves are still working. Knock on wood. I need to go back and actually do a switch on purpose just to see if it will work. Maybe I'll screw things up. The R3000 that I have, it was actually, somebody wrote me an email and said, hey, I got an R3000 I'd like to give you. I said, what? Sure. Okay, here's my address. And I paid him $60. They sent it to me. And the only thing it had wrong was that the black ink switch valve is stuck on matte black. Can't use it on photo black. So that's a dedicated matte paper printer right now. So let's go ahead and switch over to some of the things that have been going on. Let me refresh some of these pages here. So we're going to go to our Facebook, and I'll just tell you what's going on. Talking about a monitor. Again, I am also not very well trained or educated in monitor technology. I know how to calibrate them, but I cannot give you like recommendations on specific brands or models. I just cannot. Freshly baked Canon Pro-1000 image is a scanned medium format negative printed on Canson Rag Photographique 310. Let me give you a quick look and see what that looks like for you guys. That is another aspect. So, gosh, that is something I really wanted to get into, and to sort of go back to the nostalgia of film, but work digitally. So what would you need? You would need a film scanner. Well, I got a Epson Perfection B500 photo right here. It's not sufficiently good. I used to have a V800 at work, and that thing is a killer. Okay, that thing is beautiful, and it scans super great, results from negatives and also slides. So my goal was back then, and I got to go back to my storage room and check my boxes where I have all my folders and negative books and all of that stuff. I still have all that stuff back there, and sort of begin to explore film scanning, and then digitize everything and start printing from film. The look will be totally different. It'll be like that'll truly be like day and night, but film prints, of course. I love it when these companies say, oh, this paper will give you results that match the days of the darkroom print. Well, it's not all about matching. It's not all about matching the surfaces. Okay, it's not all about matching like the tone of a lab, wet lab produced black and white print or monochrome print. It's about the look of film. And see, when you have an image made up of pixels, unlike the print that you create, which has variable size dot technology, the image itself, its pixels, however many, whatever your pixel density is per inch, the pixels will all be the same size. It's just a grid of little squares, each of them a certain value, okay? And depending on your bit rate, if you have 3 channels, it could be as many as 16 million plus different values. So sure, you get a very beautiful continuous tone image, but the look, my friends, does not match that of film. Even say 100 ASA, as it was known back in the day, you know, color negative film, when you print it, even at a relatively small size, you would see film grain. You would see the grain that composes all of the different tones, edges, everything. Grain is what dictated how sharp that image would be on print, on paper. It would then dictate how because color film had 3 layers of dyes. They call them dye couplers. And again, a negative film would become a layer of, it would have built-in filtration, red, green, and blue, through which a color image projected by the lens would pass through. It would get separated. The blue filtered portion of the image would become a yellow layer. Magenta would be, of course, what? Green. And, you know, cyan would be your red. And so really interesting the way that works. So say, for instance, a certain hue, you would have 3 layers. You have film grain getting in your mix, because remember, color film really is black and white film. It just has color dye layers in it. And so when you bleach the film, which was part of the developing process, bleaching just basically meant that you remove all the silver content and you're only left with dye. And those dyes would contain grain that existed when your negative still had the silver in it. Isn't that amazing? So you remove it's quite a process when you think about it. So when you remove the silver by using the so-called bleach and then the fixer, so fixer will remove all of the black images on film. Is really metallic silver that's been reduced to black. In other words, it's been tarnished. So when you bleach it, you turn it back to a salt. It's no longer a metal, it's a salt. And then the fixer will then remove that salt. But the dye coupler layers already had like the imprint of whatever those 3 separated red, green, blue, it gets very difficult, layers was. So those dye layers still had grain imprinted in them. So when you print it now as a positive on paper, you will see all of those little granules. And it looked like if you really zoom in, you would have all these little colors. It looks like a Van Gogh painting. In other words, if you used a very high-speed color negative film, you would get a very grainy Van Gogh-ish looking result. I have some of those with my daughter in a beautiful, field of trees. Yeah, great. You don't get that. You don't get that with digital process. Sensors cannot produce that. So the same thing with black and white. So what do you do? Well, I'm going to fake it. Okay, I'm going to fake it. I'm going to take my image, RGB image, digital, shot with a digital camera. I'm going to convert it to a black and white or monochrome. I'm going to adjust the different channel filtration so that I get my grays looking the way I want, so that they sort of represent what color they would have been. And I'm going to add a grain filter on top. Well, that won't work. You see, the reason being is that that grain filter is like you applying just a piece of glass with grain built in. It's even all the way around. Okay, and grain on film is not even, it's non-linear. Okay, so think about this. Grain clumps. This is what made black and white. Look at any images from the 70s. Jimi Hendrix time. Contrasty and grainy. Grungy. We used to call it grungy black and whites. Okay. You pushed your Tri-X 400 ASO now, to 1200, and then you developed it longer. That made the grain even clumpier. Okay. Detail? What detail? It was just more impressionistic than anything else. So the difference between that and faking it digitally is that something that would be depicted as a light tone on paper in negative form would be an area with a high density or clumping of metallic silver. That on the negative, it would be black opaque. Light cannot get past that, so it doesn't expose the paper. So the paper, then your result would be a highlight, a very bright highlight. That highlight would be composed of a really grainy area on your negative. Your shadow areas, that would be basically black. That means they hardly received any light, so the developing process did not reduce those silver salts to any metallic silver. The results, no grain, nothing. It's just clear. And if it's a gray shadow, it would have a little bit of grain, but nothing like the dense highlights. So you see shadow areas would be very almost grainless, and then as the density increases, it will become more and more grainy. So if they could come up with a grain producing filter that takes a look at your density range and then systematically apply more grain toward the highlighted areas, in other words, begin shadows with hardly any grain, more grain, more grain, more grain, more grain, like that gradually, that would reproduce the look of film. And that was the magic about film. That's what made the big difference between film and what we accept today as a very creamy, very, smooth as molasses results, especially with Eli's camera. Eli's new camera. You got more pixels than you could ever use. Okay. So your results will never have grain. Okay. It'll just be smooth as butter. And that's not what real photography looked like back in the film days. So either you love it or you don't. So if you want that look, you got to scan your negatives. Or someone has to invent a filter that will apply a non-linear application of gray depending on your image's density range. So each density would have a different amount of grain, different coarse. And it wasn't just more, it was just more, but also larger. So not only did it change in the amount of grain, but the size of the clumping. And the clumping was very irregular. It wasn't like super, regularly spaced little clumps. No, it was larger clumps here, small clumps attached to it. Yeah, really, it's just a special look. Now, if you like that, then you have to go back to film. If you never saw film in your whole life, then you don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, you have no clue what I'm talking about. Eli has no clue what I'm talking about, probably, because he's, almost 16 now. So he grew up this millennia. No one used film now. So it's just something that you can maybe discover and explore, and it would be quite an adventure, I guarantee you, especially if you get into actually developing your film. Oh man. And you might say, well, you didn't have a lot of control. Oh yes, you did. You had a lot of control. Go ask Ansel Adams how much control he had. Well, he's not around to tell us, but read his books. Let's see what else. Amos says, that is my future project. Scanning in black and white archive 120 and 135. So 120 would be 6 centimeters, 120 millimeters wide film. Usually it would be 6x6, or I think it was like 4 3/4 by 6. And there were many formats that were using 120 film, even 6x9. Which is quite nice. I had a camera that did that. I still do. I have it's a Century Graflex with a Schneider lens shutter, very nice. And I have film holders for 120 that are 6x9, also 6x6, and then the smaller size, which was more like an 8x10 or 4x5 type ratio, 4:5 ratio. Very nice. And again, yeah, I even still have my metal film cans and all of that stuff. I could get back into it if I really wanted to, but I really don't have any place to set up a proper darkroom. I even have an enlarger that I still have. I mean, so there's nothing stopping me. It's just that it's just too much work and too much effort to get back into that. And, the smell of the chemicals and all of that stuff. All right. Larry Modzelowski. Jose, do you have an Instagram site to follow? No, I don't. I don't do Instagram. I only do Facebook. I'm really not into social media that much. Like, I see some of these people's channels and they have like 5 different places that you can follow those people. Yeah, I mean, maybe I would even be more successful with the channel if I did. I'm really not looking to become a channel with 1 million subscribers. That's not going to happen. Maybe I might reach 100,000 in a few more years, but not that level. I'm not going to be at that position within YouTube. Again, my goal is to just keep this fun, keep this simple, and help out as many as I can through a platform that I understand. Okay. And I simply would not have the time to do Instagram, to do Twitter, to do this, oh my gosh, no. Not going to happen. Max 2000 says from the Valley, do you stream every Saturday? Yes, I do, sir. I sure do. And you were the one that was asking me questions on YouTube. And so, yeah, we're here at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, USA, every Saturday. When they switch the time, I'll probably go back to 6 o'clock p.m., but that's not going to happen for a while. Jason says, Jose, I know it is not considered professional. However, the Epson Perfection B600 Pro Scanner does an amazing job on film, considering the low cost, under $200. Yeah, I have a V500. It will do a good job. I just need to find my silly holders. I don't know where I put them, to tell you the truth. I think they might be over there somewhere. I got so much stuff here. It's just, I lose track of stuff. Man. But anyway, yeah, I would like to go back. First, I got to find my negatives and then come back over here and put this scanner to work. Larry Modzelowski. I used a Yashica when I was in the Army. I bought it at the pawn shop back then. I was in St. Thomas when I bought my Nikon F2A. I still shoot with it now and then. Yeah, it's a great thing to get back into. I used to collect the German Exacta brand. They were kind of pioneer in the SLR side of things before before World War II ended, and they basically closed down the factory in Dresden, East Germany, and they moved over to West Germany, and it just went down the toilet at that point. The Exacta family of cameras just stopped. Japan just took over. But back then, that was the camera. In any kind of scientific application, you had an Exacta. That's what you used. And the accessories looked like jewels. I mean, machined and beautifully done. I got a lot of stuff that I still own, and it's just beautiful. It's just a beautiful family of cameras, and I love the way that it evolved. I'm not saying that they got better through this evolutionary process. there was a period, like their sweet period, where the cameras were just fantastic, mechanically speaking, and just the quality that you were getting with the size lenses. And yeah, really neat family of cameras. I haven't really collected anything else beyond that. In the Army, when I was in Special Forces, we used Leicas. So I had a set of Leica cameras. That's what we took on airplanes, and we shot, you know, our troops jumping out of the back tail end of a C-130 and so forth, maybe a helicopter jump, and I had to cover all of these events. And so we used Leicas. They were easy to use. Even jumpers would use them to shoot as they were emerging out of the tail of a C-130. And many of them were damaged. And I tell you, it was the dumbest thing the Army ever did, to issue these camera kits that back then were like $1,000. Okay, we're talking 1980 money, and issue them to, you know, these infantry guys that were airborne. They were crazy people anyway, so they didn't care. They treated them like they were replaceable objects. Same thing happened in Nam. I mean, the F2s were being abused out there in the field, especially if you're under fire, okay, and you're trying to cover something for like the Stars and Stripes out of Saigon, you know. So yeah, they gave us more camera than we really needed at the time. But anyway, it was an experience. What's the easiest way to create an ICC profile on an EPSON 2500? What is an EPSON 2500? Is that a printer? I'm not familiar with that one. Dale Flattery plus a Canon Pixma MG 5750, regards from the UK. Okay, the MG, is that like an all-in-one? You got me there, brother, because I know nothing about those printers. Eli says it's okay. He's talking about the cloud, what he uses for cloud storage. 6 months a month for unlimited backup. I gotta start doing that again. My cloud account was frozen and deleted, I think so. Jeff Thompson says, Eli, the same here. Eli says it's great, blah 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 blah. Harold Goldberg, I have a Connie Omega, wow, Rapid M with a 120 220 roll film holders, also several Minolta autofocus 35mm lenses. They work well in the Sony A7 and A6 V. Boy, we're going to start going back in time any minute now. Amos says, hybrid photography seems to be quite popular, as I learned in my research. Use film, then scan and print digitally. I didn't know film is still available. The best of both worlds, as they claim. Yeah, it is. It is in a way. It's a really neat thing to go back, especially if you experienced it. I mean, that's all I did. Let me tell you a little bit something about me. Okay, I have a few family videos. I have a family playlist. Okay, you can go back and find out all about me. I have a video that I did. I think it's called "Going Back in Time," where I went ahead and before my mom and dad passed away, I grabbed every photo that I can find in their house, and I took it home, scanned those photos, fixed them, and I made 5x7s. I made about 150 5x7s, and I put you all to sleep probably, showing you the sequence of pictures. And I went from my babyhood, okay, in Puerto Rico, to the present time through the Army, my 20-something years in the Army, and, you know, up to now. And now I forget what I was going to tell you. Something about me, something personal. Anyway, it'll come to mind. But anyway, so yeah, that's something that afforded me the ability to be able to do that, to show you something that most people, you know, unless they actually physically show you the album, will not have access to. We have the ability now to preserve all of our family treasures, all of those pictures that are fading in your albums, fading because of chemical fading, because they didn't really wash those prints enough at the lab when you produced them back in the 50s and 60s. So they're fading now. That's you know, that's what happens. Even in an album, they will fade to nothing if you don't take the time now to save them, digitally. And like Eli is doing, $6 a month, you can send those files up to the cloud, and supposedly they're guaranteed to last forever. So something to consider doing. But anyway, yeah, so what else can we talk about? Let's see. That's something that happens quite often to me in my head. I lose track of what I'm talking about. Had a lot of people putting up their pictures that they printed with their Pro 100, and they are so excited. There's something nice about printing your own pictures and hanging them up. I'm loving my Pro 100. Yeah. Okie dokie. Let's see what's happening on the comment section. B200 error. Okay, so that basically, that is a very common error when it comes to Canon printers. And it's related to what? It's related to the print head. Usually means, although it could vary in origin and reasons for it to pop up, but basically what happens is that your set of lights in your front panel will start blinking, alternate blinking like that 9 times, I believe. And that then stops and then begins again. So nothing will get accomplished. Your printer will just sit there blinking. So that's a B200 error. You can look that up, and it tells you to, unplug the printer and to, plug it back on after about, several minutes of being unplugged off the wall, and then hope for the best. My Pro 1 will do that occasionally. Okay. I've already replaced the printhead 1 time on it, and I have another spare printhead waiting for that day to occur again. Now, when you unplug it and you plug it back up and you press that start button, if you're lucky and the error is gone, on the Pro 1 at least, or the Pro 10 and the Pro 100 and the Pro 1000, all of those Canon printers react the same way. They have the same printhead error, the B200, Bravo 200, to use military jargon. So what happens is this: it'll start to boot up. It will immediately begin a cleaning cycle. Okay, it will start purging any remnant amount of ink that may have collected. Remember, when you park that printhead on that purge pad, think of the nozzle plate as a rectangular unit, and that gets pressed against a soft silicone gasket that goes around the perimeter or periphery of that purge unit. Purge unit is really a vacuum unit. It applies vacuum to the printhead. It's got a pump underneath that applies vacuum, and it draws ink out, and then the printhead detaches, and you hear the wriggling noise. That's what that's what you think is a cleaning cycle, but it's really just the pump emptying out the purge pad of the ink it collected from the printhead, applying that bit of vacuum. Actually, that's the silent part. That's not the real, that's the real cleaning cycle, the silent part. The noisy part is the purge pad draining away. So when a printhead has been sitting on the pad, and say, like in my case, if I wait enough time, there will be probably a B200 error generated. So what I have to do is unplug the printer, wait about 10 minutes, plug it back on. When I plug it back on, if it worked to reset that error, eliminate the error, it will begin a rather massive cleaning cycle. It has to. So in this particular case, this gentleman, he never told me that the printer model. So he apparently has a very low-cost Canon printer, maybe one of the cheaper, under $100, because he was able to find a $25 printhead on Amazon. He replaced it, and guess what happened? A short while later, another B200 error. What in the world can cause that? technically speaking, the B200 means the printhead cannot communicate any longer with the printer. So when that happens, it severs all communication with the printer. You get that flashing light situation. Boom, B200. Now, if something is up with your motherboard, and they have a motherboard just like a computer has a motherboard, they call it a logic board. If something happens within that logic board that triggers some sort of electronic failure within the printhead, which then triggers a breach in communication with the printer, then I don't care how many times you change that printhead, it's going to always, be rendered bad by that motherboard. So I think that's the case. Since it's already changed it once, that should have solved it. Unless the printhead he got was bad. That's a possibility. But the more logical answer to that is that the logic board or printer motherboard then damaged the printhead. And then, of course, that triggered the B200. It's a sad thing that happens with Canon printers. What can you do? That's the nature of the style and type of printhead that they use. When they work, oh, don't get me wrong, when they work, they are amazing and they last a very, very long time. Okay. People still asking me, Jose, please, where can I download your standard print photo? I needed to follow along with your first print from my new Pro-1000 Facebook group. My Facebook group. That's not my image. I did not create that. I got that image from Outback Test Images in the UK. Okay? So if you don't want to do Facebook, if you just don't do Facebook, you don't want any part of Facebook, then Google Outback Test Images. Let's give that a try. And I'll lead you guys to a place where you don't have to join my Facebook group if you don't want to. You can just go there and find that image. So let's go ahead and Google it. Outback, just like the Australian restaurant. Test images. Let's see if we get, not clip art. The last time I tried this, it worked. Northlight Images right here. All right, so here's one for black and white. I offer that in my Facebook group. See, the thing is about, if you just go to my Facebook group, you'll be able to download everything as one pack. You have many different types of images that you can download from them, okay? All sorts of images. This one's a good one as well. I have that one. This is the one that I love right here. So go ahead and go to, not Outback, but Northlight Images. Northlight Images, okay? Search for that, bookmark it, and you won't have to then join my Facebook group just to be able to get that image. So I should have given them the link. Let's see. Northlight. I don't know why Outback didn't come on. Outback is another group out of the UK that does a lot of image work. Here we go. You can get them here as well. You can see. So all of these test images are simply used for you to be able to determine whether your printer's output is correct. Okay, it can actually correctly output. I'm going to go ahead and put this here because I'm allowed to do that. I'll be able to post that here for you guys to have. So that's one of the best sources. That's where I got a lot of my images, and I made a compilation of the images that is about 100 megabytes worth of download. It's a like a zip type file. Just basically download it and you'll have access to all of those images. Okie doke, let me see. Let me go back to that gentleman there and I'll give him the information. I think I gave him the wrong information regarding that. Here you go. Here you go, my friend. Enjoy. Somebody wrote me, actually, I think you're here tonight. Larry Modzalowski. I wrote a list of things to check before I hit print. Hate to print out at 11 by 17 and then notice my horizon line is running downhill or a few lens watermarks that could have been removed. I think you're referring to your actual images, right? Thanks for sharing, blah, 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 blah. So he's referring to a video I just did about the CLI-42 cartridges and what could go wrong when you install them. Why don't we just talk about that now? Simply what I told him was to make sure that before you commit to printing everything, all your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted. What do they say? All your ducks in a row, that type of thing. When you get a Pro-100, and I don't have any unopened cartridges right now, but simply, here's the cartridge. You see? Here's an EPSON refillable cartridge. You notice this little tab right here? Okay. That will also be part of this cartridge, the Canon cartridge. Originally, the tape tab would be covering the factory ball. This is a video I just put up the other day, by the way. You guys can look at it later if you wish. And it would extend beyond to the very edge of the top of the printer cartridge, okay? The ink cartridge. So what they want you to do is to lift that tab up and rip it across. What that does, it actually exposes. If I could remove this whole top, you can probably feel it. If you use your fingertip and feel it, you will feel that there's a vent that does this. They call it a serpentine vent. Serpent, right? Zigzag. So it goes all the way across to where the liquid side. And it allows air to migrate from here, the sponge side, to the liquid side. That creates this beautiful cycle, okay? When you install the cartridge, you remove that tab, okay? Before you do that, before you pop it in, remove that tape tab. It looks just like this. Just make sure you remove that. And we'll also talk about how that applies to other types of cartridges that are used by EPSON for refilling. So, for this to work, you pop it into your printhead. There is a gasket on the printhead itself that seals against this little circular rim here. The sponge is in two halves, and the bottom sponge has a little cylindrical bottom end that actually sits right here through this opening, okay? And it is exposed to the outside. That'll be saturated with ink. You pop it into your printer and you begin to print. Or, run a cleaning cycle, whatever. Anything that will demand ink to be drawn away from the cartridge. So ink is being pulled out, and when you pull out some liquid out of a chamber, guess what? You have to vent the other side. Otherwise, you create a vacuum. If there's no venting, you create a vacuum. If this tape is left in place, it will begin to work. It will work for a bit because you haven't really built up enough vacuum force to work against you, against the feeding of ink to your printhead. So all of a sudden you get terrible results. Like colors are disappearing, it's not printing, and you go, oh good Lord, let me run a cleaning cycle. How can you run a cleaning cycle when you can barely draw ink out of the cartridge due to the fact that you're creating this relatively massive vacuum situation internally, because air cannot pass through. Zigzag all the way over to the liquid chamber where the majority of the ink is kept. So make sure you pull that tab off, folks. Okay, I had an individual on Facebook, again, huge problem. I looked at no one was providing the right answer, and I looked at the nozzle check that he kindly posted, and I saw that it was getting progressively worse and worse. The more he did, the worse it got. So the only thing that was, obvious was either your tanks are empty or you did not remove the vent tab. I told him, please check your vent tabs. What vent tabs? The little tape tabs that your cartridges have. Yeah, he let out a huge gasp, and as soon as he took those off and proceeded to do a cleaning cycle, boom, ink flow was restored, and that was the end of the problem. So make sure that you really pay attention to that. It happens also with EPSON refillable cartridges. You remove that. Remove it from the top. It will open up the vent. Okay. In this case, it's a rather crude round opening. So what else can happen? Well, these other cartridges don't have tape tabs. So how do they vent? They have vent plugs right here. Let me take one of these out. This is rather interesting because these cartridges are designed a little bit differently. So this will be your fill hole. I'm sorry. This will be your fill hole right here. I can barely get it out. It's such a low profile plug that my nails cannot reach it. But you would pull this plug. That is your fill plug. And this vent plug is simply yellow to kind of give you an idea what color the cartridge is. So you're going to remove that vent plug out. Store it in a little box somewhere. From now on, that will be kept open. Okay, that is what's going to vent the cartridge as you draw ink out. Okay, you need to have a continuous flow of air. Otherwise, you'll starve the printhead instantly. On an EPSON cartridge, that will not cause any harm. On an EPSON printer, that will not cause any harm. On a Canon printer, that will destroy your printhead. Who else has that? Well, refillable cartridges for the 3100, 3800, 3880, and even my P800 that I'm using a decoder board on, they also have a vent plug. And where is that at? Somewhere here. Anyway, it's built in right here. That little post right here is your vent plug. That allows air to vent in as ink is being drawn out. So yeah, now some printers, like the Pro-1000, they don't have any vent plugs anywhere. Those cartridges, you say, like, how the heck do they handle, equalizing internal pressure if there's no venting of any kind that you can see? Okay, they use a different technology. The spigot, okay, that enters the seal of the cartridge. So we'll just use this as an example. So the spigot enters inside, okay, and you begin to use ink. You begin to print. The spigot serves two purposes. It has two channels built in. One allows ink to come out, and one allows air to get in. And guess what happens? The little air bubbles that get in agitate the ink. Isn't that amazing? And as you draw a given volume of ink out, a given volume of air is allowed back into the cartridge. And the cartridge is very simply a sealed situation. Now, why do we need an air vent when this thing has, well, the original cartridges have also the air vent, but the original cartridges have an internal ink bag. And as far as I know, like the Pro-10, as you draw ink out of the ink bag just simply collapses. There's no pressure that needs to be maintained, okay, in there. So the ink bag resides in an internal environment, and that environment has to be kept equalized. Isn't that something? So yeah, cartridges are not simple, okay? They're not. They're quite elaborate. There's a lot of engineering that goes into these things. And you have to sort of begin to understand how they work. So you can then possibly, if you need to, you can, troubleshoot a problem you might run into. So that you don't chase after something like this poor guy did. Cleaning cycle, deep cleaning cycle he ran. Well, good Lord, that would cause even more problems, right? You're actually building up more pressure. So, negative pressure. So what also happens? Imagine, think of this. You apply negative pressure to a cartridge that cannot be vented. So that would be like pulling, and then you stop printing. Well, guess what's going to happen? That negative pressure wants to equalize itself. It's going to aspirate air through the print head back into the cartridge. Yeah, it'll equalize itself after a while, but now you got massive amounts of air in that print head. And then you try to print. You're going to assume that you have ink internally filling every nook and cranny of that particular yellow channel. And in reality, what you have is air. And the more you try to print previously, the more vacuum you build in, and the more air is aspirated. Once that vacuum is relieved by aspirating air. The wrong way, really. That would cause more problems than anything. So yeah, all of that can be solved simply by pulling that little tab off. Make sure you pull that tab off on your CLI-42s. Very important. Gosh, that was a huge problem that I was able to catch. I'm glad I was able to catch that. It's not because I'm so freaking great. No. It's because I've done it. Alrighty, let's see. Dunny Monster used to come to the channel live stream here, and he had a good suggestion. I did that video where actually it was a series of videos. I think it's up to like 4 videos now, where I spoke about the term that I came up with, certification of your printer, which basically just means, is my printer performing the way the factory intended it to perform? Is it able to produce a good result from this image? Can it do that? Well, if it can do that, that's it. You are set. You're done with that printer. Now all you have to do is worry about your monitor. Calibrate your monitor so it matches that perfect rendition of that perfect image. That's it. See how simple that is? Extremely simple. But that implies that you are letting the printer driver control color. And why is that necessary? Because you don't want to interfere any way, shape, or form. You want to it's like letting a child do something. Baby, I don't care if you mess up, go ahead and do it. I just want to see if you can do it. And I'm not gonna interfere. So you're letting the printer produce a print of that image without your meddling. Okay? And that's what I would call it. Whether it's the application meddling or you meddling. That means you never edit that image. You open it and print it. Period. And then when you produce it, you come back to the monitor and you say, well, monitor, do you match my result? Oh, no, you don't. Oh, okay, then we have to adjust you. And that's what you do through calibration. You adjust the monitor so that it renders that image visually to you so that it matches this print. That's it. You are done. Done. No more worries. But that's letting the driver control color. Okay, so that means that you're going to be using, on a Canon printer, you're going to be using a Canon paper. Because when you choose that paper choice, it's going to link it to the correct ICC profile. So behind your back, whether you knew it or not, as a ranked beginner, you're actually working with a full-blown color managed workflow as long as you're printing on Canon papers. Because there are profiles installed with your driver to match every single paper that's included on that drop-down menu within the driver. You get what I mean? So whatever paper you're printing on from Canon, you're going to find that paper type, and then you're going to go to color/intensity manual adjustment, matching tab. Don't worry about those beautiful sliders. Ignore them. Matching tab. And then after you do that, choose ICM. Let the driver do its job. It will produce a great result, I guarantee you. Especially with OEM inks. Even with Precisioncolors inks. So that just tells you the printer by itself. This one by itself, really, that was printed with the driver using PC inks. Okay? And I am so satisfied with this, I can just kiss it. I can give it a kiss. Mwah! It's beautiful. Okay? So there you go. So once you do that, you're set. You can now, you just open the door to this wonderful world. This is your first printer. You know absolutely nothing. Profiles. What the heck is a profile? Well, let your printer control color. But now here comes the catch. You're going to switch to other papers. The time will come. I know it. You're going to find Red River. You're going to find HALIMUN. You're going to find Moab. You're going to find all sorts of different papers. You can't do that anymore. You cannot print through the driver anymore. Maybe you can if a particular luster paper from whoever makes it happens to have the same printing characteristics as Pro Luster from Canon. You may be able to get away with it. But that's the only time when then you're going to need a custom profile. And we're talking about printing with OEM inks here. So that would be the only time I would tell you, well, Joe or Frank or Bill or Mary, this is time now for you to learn how to print using a custom created profile. Why do you want to call it a custom created profile? Actually, they're all custom created. The term OEM profile, that means it's custom created. It was custom created for a Canon paper with a Canon printer and Canon ink. Yeah. Now you get a HALIMUN paper or breathing color paper. You create a profile for that paper with a Canon printer and Canon ink, or an EPSON printer and EPSON ink. They're all custom profiles. Okay. It's just that now you're going to manually control this process. So what you do now is you're going to have to tell your application to control color. Then you're going to have to turn off that option within the printer driver. In Canon, it's what? Color/intensity, manual adjustment, matching. It will be set to ICM. Now you set it to none. That's it. Now the printer says, well, I'm closing my eyes. I'm not going to bother you with any kind of color management. I'm not going to make any suggestions anymore about color management. Now you tell Photoshop, hey, I'm letting you control color, and this is the paper that I'm using. This is the profile that I downloaded from that company. So please use that profile to print my image with. That's it. Okay. So it's either this one or that one, not both. Okay. If at some point you just don't want to print with, color managed workflow through Photoshop or Lightroom or Capture One or whatever you're using, just let the driver do its job. But it would work 100% only if you're using that particular printer brand's papers, because basically it is designed for those papers and it has profiles for those papers. Of course it's going to work, you see. So How can I do that and keep track of all of this? Oh my gosh. I can't remember when I'm supposed to do this or that. Well, you know I love Qimage, guys and gals. So I'm going to take you through another little demo. This is pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and open up Qimage. By the way, before I forget, I see Robert Gully dropped a $5 super chat. Thank you so much. Super info and articles on the Northlight Images link. Thanks for sharing. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you very much. Let's see who else was here. WD Boston 1, only an hour and 55 minutes late. Well, we got a while to go. We got another good hour to go. Max 2000 from the Valley. Have you had the Canon? No, I don't have any of those printers. TS3150. Sorry, Max 2000, but I don't even know what model that may be. Again, I got the Pro 1, I got the Pro 10, I got the Pro 100, and I got the Canon Pro 1000. Done. That's it. That's as far as my Canon experience takes me. So I don't have anything else. All right. This is a new Qimage. The latest one is version 2019 Ultimate in .124. Okay. So let me give you two small demos here. So let's go ahead. I'm going to load my standard image. Notice on the left here, if you will, look at all those images. This is what you get when you download my pack. No need to go online and find them individually. Download the pack. Join the Facebook group. You won't regret it. If you do Facebook at all, you will love it. I got so many images here that each has its own purpose in the world of printing. This one particularly is interesting. This will tell you not only about how sharp your printer can produce, results. How sharp can your printer print? In other words, it has resolution lines. Okay, it has resolution lines. It also has graduated color patches from nothing to full saturation. Nothing to full saturation. This is going to print from this end, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's going to begin with red, green, blue, black, cyan, magenta, and yellow. Okay? All at a very, very, very low demand condition. Then the demand will increase more and more and more. If your printer cannot keep up with that demand, you're going to see gaps. You're going to see like a bit of ink starvation here. And if you see that, then it's time to stop printing. Okay? That means there's something wrong with your ink flow. It may be due to the fact you may not have taken the tab fully off of your printer. Simply taking it off is not all. You have to make sure that that surface, the openings to that serpentine vent, are 100% uncovered. But we're not going to use that one, so we'll go ahead and delete that. And we have our standard image here. And we're going to go ahead and print it. I don't know, let's see. Canon Pro 100, matte photo paper. Let's choose another paper just to make things interesting. Glossy photo paper, yeah, why not? Glossy photo paper. Letter size, yeah, we'll choose letter size. Boom. All right. Now, so far, everything looks good. I got a green check mark, but let's go ahead and check to see what the driver actually says. It says it wants to print the borderless. We're going to go ahead and uncheck that. And we got glossy photo paper, standard. We'll change that to high. We got a nice quality print. We're going to click on this, click on it again. Remember, manual color adjustment, click on matching, and it says ICM. Okay, that's good. We're going to use relative colorimetric this time. Make sure we have all of our in-gamut colors printed correctly without any shifting. Remember. And we're going to click OK. And now I can go ahead and print that. Okay. Notice what it says down here, folks. Let printer driver manage color. Okay. So let's go ahead and change that. Okay, let's set it. Let's make believe that it was set to let Qimage manage color. So I'm going to go ahead and pick a profile. Look what happened here. So you see what happened here? I'm using Precisioncolors PCSE Canon Photo Paper Premium Matte. Well, that's the wrong profile for glossy paper, right? I want to let the printer control color. Let me see what happened. Because I saw that little thing flash there. It told me something about the driver. Oh, by the way, is that the correct paper profile for glossy photo paper? Of course not. So, gosh, now I gotta search and search and search for the correct profile for that particular paper. Ah, what a pain in the neck that's gonna be. Let's click on here just to see what happens. In that little magnifying glass, it says suggest. List profiles in order of relevance to current printer and media. Let's click on that. OMG. See look what's right on the top. Canon Pro-1000, GD, whatever that means, 2 other glossy paper. That is the paper I'm supposed to be, the paper profile I'm supposed to be using. We'll choose that one. Why not? So now I'm ready to print with Qimage this image using glossy photo paper from Canon, and it suggested to me the correct profile, even though I originally had the wrong profiles, chosen. Okay, that would have been disastrous. I would have been printing with the profile required by this paper, matte, okay, not glossy. Are you getting me? What I'm trying to tell you here? This is a wonderful feature, folks. So now that I told it to control color, okay, see that? It says Canon Pro-1000 and other nomenclature, basically referring to a profile. I better check to see if the driver is still set to ICM. It cannot be set to ICM. That means that Qimage will be controlling color to this profile, and then the printer will be trying to control color using the same profile. Double profiling. Big no-no. You cannot do that. Properties. Let's check. Color manual intensity. Matching. None. It's set to none. It used to be set to ICM. Now it's set to none. That's perfect. That's what we want. Let's try that again. Let's go ahead and choose another printer. Let's switch over to another printer. Do you think I can do that for EPSON? Why not? Let's try. EPSON P800. I had a custom size pick. I had ultra premium photo paper luster chosen. Let's go ahead and just choose premium photo paper semi-gloss. Uh-oh, I got a problem here. You see that little triangle? I'm going to click on properties. I'm going to make sure that this paper matches this paper. It does. So why was it all upset? I don't know. Let printer driver manage color. Okay, set to ICM. Okay, so far so good. I think this is fine. Okay. Look at that. Now we're green. It just simply wanted me to check. It just said, hey, Joe, I suggest that you double check. This is telling me something about my custom paper size. Don't worry about that. For this demo, nothing to do with what we're trying to demonstrate here. Let printer driver manage color. I have ICM chosen here. Wonderful. All right. Now, I'm going to ask it. All of a sudden, now I want to get fancy, and I want to print using an ICC profile through Qimage. So I'm going to tell it to suggest a profile for me for the P800 in that particular premium photo paper semi-gloss. Click on that. And look what's on the top. SC Sure Color P800 series premium photo paper semi-gloss. What do you guys think? Even this dummy cannot make a mistake anymore. Let's go back. So then we pick that one. Boom and boom. Ah, look what happened. Printer driver color matching settings have been auto-applied. Oh, really? Have they really been auto-applied? Let's check. Off, no color adjustment. How about that? Isn't that fantabulous? Isn't that amazing? How about that? And I got it set to roll paper banner and user-defined size. You see what I'm talking about, Qimage? Fantastic. I mean, how else would you think a rank beginner who's trying to learn how to print with an ICC profile, and you want to avoid all of the pitfalls that you may hit on your way there? I want something like this to prevent me from making dumb mistakes. Now, you only learn from your mistakes, right? Well, I don't want you to waste weeks and months struggling when you have just simply made a simple mistake and your results are not coming out the way you think they should, and the answer might be something extremely simple. What do you guys think about that? $60 is all this application cost you guys. Okay, I think it's $59 or $69, something like that. If that was the only thing it did, that's it, I would buy it. Now, what else can it do? Among dozens and dozens and dozens of features that it has that are unique only to that particular application. No one else has that. You can save jobs. You can selectively change any color within your image. Yeah, it has that as well. You can do selective grain reduction or noise reduction. Yeah, you can do that too. The best sharpening algorithm ever created in the digital world. Yeah, you can do that too. So many things. The purge sheet creation so that you can exercise your printer while you are away on vacation. Yeah, you can do that too. My favorite, of course, is job creation. You can set up jobs. You can recall those jobs anytime you want down the road and proceed with a job that maybe you get a second order for. You can just recall it. Like Eli has all of his work saved to OneDrive and also the cloud, and is backing up all of his images here and there. All you got to do is when you create that job and you load the images that you are going to be printing, regardless of how many different locations they came from, once you save it and you click on job and you give it a name that you can then call back a year later, and you click on job, in other words, call back that job named whatever. Eli went to Arizona on vacation 2019, then Eli will be able to have that complete job of images recalled. Every setting will be preserved. Printing, paper size, layout, whatever you did to create that job will be recalled 100%. I love it. Just clicking one stinking button and then everything else is ready. Oh, the next button I have to click is print, because everything is going to be recalled. The profile that I used, the paper type that I used, the size that I created, my layouts that I made, everything is recalled. All you got to worry about is having enough printer paper in the printer and enough ink available. So yeah, well, I mean, come on, it's a no-brainer. Absolutely. Let's see what else we got here. What time is it? We got about another half hour to go. I think we can find out some more stuff. Oh, let me show you guys this. This might prove interesting. For those of you brave people who want to modify your own cartridges, somebody here, Go Hapster, made a file. Now, too bad that Mr. Cheney from Qimage is not here with us. He made a 3D printing type file. It's an STL. That's the file format for 3D printers. Let's see what it is. So basically, it is a handheld knob or guide that will help you, and a jig also. Awesome. That will help you in your drilling. See, I have, I don't need this because I have a milling machine. I have drill presses. I have vices that can hold my cartridge exactly perfectly straight. The big problem you might run into, by the way, so this is available. It's on my so-called comment section. I think it's tied up to the CLI-42 Did You Remove the Tab video. I just uploaded that the other day. So take a look at that. If you're able to 3D print, download the file and 3D print it. That's it. So wonderful. I love it when people do that. Let's see. Hi, Mr. Rodriguez. Once again, thank you for the answer to my question so quickly. I just have one more question about the EPSON P400. If I just using dye ink, oh, okay. I did want to talk about this. So here's an individual. I don't know. I think it's in a foreign country. This name might be whatever. It doesn't look like English to me. Even Akai. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. Who knows? He didn't really specify where he was at. But he wants to use dye inks on a printer designated for pigment ink. Now, can you do that? Of course you can. Sure. No problem. But here's the problem. Here's no problem, meaning that, yeah, the printer definitely can use dye ink. Not a problem at all. The problem comes, what do you plan to use? Like, what inkset are you going to plan to use on your P400? The P400 has, let me see if I remember, photo black, matte black, cyan. It has 8 colors. So let's start. Photo black, matte black, cyan, magenta, red, orange, yellow, and light magenta. It does not have light cyan. So that's 8 colors. So you would have to have, from I don't know where, an ink set composed of dye inks that are formulated to be a spectral match to these 8 pigment inks, unless you just don't care about your output. If you don't, then I suppose you can go find, Now, I think at one time, let me check to make sure. I think, forget it. Inkjet Mall used to have dye inks, but I think they were made specifically for Epson printers of the 9-color variety. One time they had the dye ink set for the R2000, which is that would be perfect if you could find, the dye ink set that Inkjet Mall used to have available at one time for the R2000 or the R1900, which is the same ink set. So that would be fantastic. So otherwise, no, dude, you have to mix and match, and it's just not going to work. Let me tell you, I was telling you about magenta not being magenta, magenta not being magenta, magenta not being magenta, yellow not being yellow, yellow ink from different ink sets don't match. The R2000 ink set that I got from Precisioncolors, when I first set it out on my table, I said, what the? Yeah. That yellow ink looked like a light green yellow. And I thought, again, what the, what? And I said, okay, well, he knows better, right? So I have many empty sets of R2000 cartridges, refillable cartridges. So I went ahead and filled up a set with that, pop it into my printer, ran a cleaning cycle. It printed beautiful yellows. It printed yellows as good as OEM did. Yet the ink itself did not look yellow. It did not look yellow. So yeah, that's a great example. Yellow is not yellow, it's not yellow. And so when you are mix and matching inks like that, it's just not going to work. No, sir, it's not going to work. I remember situations where back in the day when we had this horrific problem of gloss differential with third-party pigment inks. This was when companies began to start putting out third-party inks in pigment form. So you had OCP from Germany, you had an image specialist from the US. Both of them sucked as far as gloss differential. So if you specify or specifically only print on matte paper, you were good to go. After profiling, yeah, really great results. But not on glossy paper. Oh my Lord, no way. Magenta was basically matte. Okay, if you were to print with that ink set on a glossy paper and you happen to have a pink flower among other colors, that pink flower would be matte. When you looked at the surface of the print, you will see a big matte pink flower. That's why I developed a system to coat prints such as those with a clear coat of gloss optimizer. And that took, a special RIP software. I used a 1400, which I still have loaded with that stuff. I don't use it anymore because I don't need to use it anymore. But anyway, back then, yeah, that was the case. So OCP inks from Germany, that magenta ink was matte. So somebody said, well, why don't you just switch over to an OEM magenta? Oh, yeah, good idea. OEM magenta is quite glossy. It's, resin microencapsulated, unlike these OCP inks that I was paying 3 cents a milliliter for. 3 cents instead of $1.25 each mil. What? $1.25, 3 cents. Very little money per ml. Yes, 16-ounce bottle for like $25. They were really great inks for matte paper, not for glossy. Anyway, so the suggestion was, okay, we're going to just stop using magenta ink from OCP, but we're going to save a fortune of money using the other, 8 colors. We're just going to substitute magenta with OEM Epson magenta for other similar printers that use the same ink type. Well, then I started searching up and down on eBay for large format cartridges. Epson 4800 and up. They didn't have vivid magenta back then. It was off. Yep, it was off. Even though magenta and magenta, you see what I mean? It was not matching. So it required profiling. So had it been a match, okay, because I was using the other 8 colors of OCP, the so-called K3 system, 9-color system. Once I took their magenta out of the mix and I introduced the glossy magenta, the one that I knew was going to perform as far as gloss went, everything went to hell on a handbasket. So I had to reprofile everything. All the papers that I was using on that printer had to be reprofiled. Even though now I was using the real deal, real magenta from Epson. But my other, 8 colors were not from Epson. They were matched against each other. Those 9 OCP colors were matched against each other. You cannot use some magenta from Epson, some cyan from Epson, and, another Epson printer or this. No, you can't. You're going to get a huge, huge headache doing that because they have to be matched to each other. My example of that greenish yellow ink, yeah, that printed beautiful yellows, couldn't be better. But when you looked at it, it kind of looked greenish. You said, what the heck is going on with that? That doesn't look normal. All right. Yeah, so that's it. So, you know, in this case, this guy wants to print with dye inks. I see no problem doing that. It's just that you're going to have a heck of a time trying to find an ink set that is matched to itself. All the corresponding colors are orchestrated together. They're all holding hands and singing, you know, Ring Around the Roses together. Getting along just fine. Not going to happen unless you find an ink set design for that. And at that time, Inkjet Mall used to have that available. All right, so sublimation. Let me get a couple of examples for you. Okay, I hope these display well. Look at the gloss on those things. So here is a nice shot of an hourglass. Look at the results of that. Again, this is just aluminum. You see that? Aluminum sheet that is coated professionally. You can see my monitor reflected right on it. It's professionally coated with polyester. Okay? So this is almost as good as those resin prints that Eli has been making. Except this is aluminum, folks. Look at this. Let me get this oriented correctly. This matches my background. Look at that. Look at the detail on that. Just beautiful. And again, the gloss is just super, super even. Just gorgeous. And this, I don't know what kind of bird this is. No, it's not a bird. It's a feather floating on a lake with lots of undulation. Gosh, it's hard to orient that without any reflections. It is so glossy. Now I have equivalent material, but it is matte. It is not quite matte. It's more like a satin type surface, and that is just great for displaying prints. Like in most office type situations, you will not have so much in the way of reflections. The color rendition is still perfectly fine. It's just as good as that. Now, how do I get into this? Okay, we got about 20 more minutes. So how do you get into this? I've gotten several questions lately about that subject. So you need to use a printer capable of using those particular inks. Sublimation inks. I don't know exactly the technical side of sublimation inks compared to, say, for instance, regular photo printing pigment-based inks or dye-based inks. I don't know exactly what the components are or how the so-called liquid base is made up of. So, or what it is made up of. I do not know. All I know is that you need a cold firing printhead. That means Epson. That means Rico or Rico. Okay. And there are other brands out there that are specifically designed for sublimation. But you know what? Why pay so much money for a printer such as that when you can just convert your own Epson printer? eBay is full of XP type printers, expression printers from Epson that already come converted for sublimation. So that will get you out of the way. Now you need to have an ink source. So Precisioncolors now sells inks in sublimation. These were printed with Precisioncolors inks. It's fabulous. I mean, if I knew nothing about printing, okay, nobody showed me what a print looks like, and they showed me this first, right off the bat, I would fall over in a faint. I mean, this is about as good as it gets. It's probably, I would go and say, I would go on the edge and say that this looks better than anything you can come up with on paper. Really, it's just incredible. Just the look. The fact that it's a perfectly stiff substrate it's even better because there's no flexing, there's nothing that you could do to it. It's actually pretty durable as well. I mean, sure, don't drop it on the floor. You know, you mount it. Anything can be made with 3D printers now. So somebody has made little mounting things that you crazy glue them or use epoxy to attach them to the back. You scuff up the back, you attach them, and then they float away from your wall. You create that floating look. Really, really nice. So where to get inks? Well, most so-called turnkey products sold by Condi.com, by InkPress Nation, HeatPressNation.com, use proprietary cartridges. And so, sure, if you want to get into it that heavy, you can go ahead and buy a turnkey product. You're going to pay quite a bit of money for it. Similar to a high-end photo printer, except, you know, dedicated only for this type of printing. Precisioncolors now has inks. Those are the ones that I'm using. So, you know, you can basically say, hey, they're as good as anything. If Jose used them and they produce that kind of result, why not? So let's go ahead and back out of here. So this is the main page. As you can see, just a bit of information about the latest products. Sublimation inks available. Now available. So click on that. Click on bulk. And here's what you can buy. Okay? And they will support 4-color printers like the one that I'm currently using. The so-called Workforce 1100 is just yellow, magenta, cyan, and 2 blacks. You can add light magenta, light cyan if you have a more capable printer. And of course, I'm going to convert my R3000 to sublimation printing. Notice, however, it is 8 colors. There is no matte black in sublimation printing. There is only black, okay? Because sublimation printing does not depend on the surface of the final substrate. You are printing directly onto a transfer type paper, and that paper then is sandwiched against the surface of what would be a perfectly clear piece of aluminum with a white base on it. You would attach that print that you created. It would be mirrored because remember, you're going to be sandwiching it face to face, so everything will be reversed. So you want to reverse the image when you print it to begin with. Gosh, I cannot orient this any way that will help you guys see. So then it's going to be heat pressed, and that's where the magic takes place. The ink will become a gas from solid to gas. That is sublimation. That's what sublimation means. And then it will permeate into the polyester layer. It will bond to it. It will be a molecular bonding taking place. Okay, it's not just ink on paper and the ink dries. Okay, you still have particles of pigment there, right? No, this is a molecular process. Literally, gas permeates that layer of polyester. Now, where else can you get inks from? By the way, let me give you some prices here. So the 2-ounce bottles go for $8.50, which is entirely reasonable. Very nice. Ink Owl also has inks. Let me see if I have something open here for Ink Owl. Let's go ahead and look for Ink Owl. Now, Ink Owl has a more extensive line of sublimation inks. Here's their tab right here for sublimation. Sublimation cartridges, so you can buy them for specific printers, and sublimation inks. So we have different categories. EPSON wide format printers, just like the ones that I show you. It'll be an 8-color process. There is no matte black, remember, just one single black. It does come with the grays, but just one black. So those of you who have a printer that has a bad ink valve, hey, you don't have to worry anymore. Like my R3000 cannot be used with photo black setting, so I have it set permanently at matte black. Hey, I could print all I want with the remaining 8 channels. All right, so if you have a 4-color printer, if you have a Ricoh or Virtuoso printer, Virtuoso are the converted Ricoh printers that basically are sold through companies like Condi.com. Again, they're specifically made for sublimation. Now, how do you do color management? How would you do that? Well, there's really no good way to do that. You're relying basically on the driver most of the time, unless you're using one of those Virtuoso printers, because they're able to produce color profiles or substrate profiles for things like Chromolux aluminum. So this is a specific type of, you hear it? Specific type of substrate. It's not paper. There's only one kind. That's it. You don't have other types. There's only one product. Chromolux, period. Done deal. That's it. This is all you have available. Okay? So you make a single profile for that. How do you go about doing that? You print your color chart onto the transfer paper. You then transfer it to the substrate, and then you scan the results off of that substrate. If your settings, of which there are many, are super consistent, that means ambient temperature, that means your press type. So my profile will not work on your press. Simple. Your press type, your substrate, of course, the pressure and the temperature and the time you transfer. That's 5 variables. You have to experiment and find the perfect mix. That would take forever, wouldn't it? Okay. And I cannot give you like my settings that will work for you. My settings will not work for you. Only your settings that you find work for your particular situation, your press, your pressure settings, your time, length of time, that means time, your temperature, and also the transfer paper. And there's got to be a couple more in there. So you see what I mean? It's not simply just printing on ProLuster and then scanning that ProLuster print. No. And it has nothing to do with whether my room is at 70 degrees or 80 degrees. It doesn't matter. Okay? So you see how much simpler that would be? It's very difficult to create an ICC profile for sublimation. It's just almost impossible. It is. You can do it, but it's more like a crapshoot. You make it lucky and get it. Most of the time you don't. You cannot. Alrighty. Hope you guys enjoyed tonight's live stream. What do you think? Any more questions? I got a few more minutes to go. Just drop anything you want to ask about right here. Let's see what else we got here. Max 2000 from the Valley. Okay, man, which is cheapest? What do you mean which is cheapest? What are we talking about? A printer? I have no idea what that Canon TS3150 even is. Okay, so I cannot give you. And you're in the UK, I believe you told me. So again, we're talking about a huge difference in price. Pricing. Canon gives rebates here in the US, so your net final cost might be a lot less than you can get over there in the UK. Do you use any printer under $250? I don't. I really don't. All of my printers start at $400 and up. It's just that the Pro-100, for instance, from Canon, can be obtained here in the United States with a rebate that reduces the final cost to like $100. That would be, I don't know, 80 pounds, let's just say. Everything I have is quite costly. Now, that doesn't mean that you cannot print. I assume you want to get into photo printing, Max, okay? I assume that's your goal. Any printer with at least 6 colors. That's what I will tell you. Any printer with at least 6 colors will give you fairly good results, okay? The more colors you have, like I explained earlier, the better, the wider, the more capable your printer will be of reproducing every color that, just about, not every color, but just about every color you see on your monitor, assuming the monitor is, of course, calibrated. That's important. Otherwise, editing in an uncalibrated monitor is like shooting in the dark. Is, you know, you're not going to get the results you see, because the results you see are not real, because your monitor is not calibrated. That's the whole catch. 2 hurdles to get through. Calibration, not calibration, verifying or certifying your printer. You print the sucker and it is perfect. And by the way, those images, that's in the UK, on a UK site. So you can get these images, use them to test your printer. And then getting your monitor to match that. That's it. That means that now when I edit something, because now I know my monitor matches that, whatever I create on my monitor and I send it to the printer, as long as the colors are within the printer's capability, and that's why I stress at least 6 colors or more is what you need. Unless you're just going to print graphics and line work and text and things like that, you know, it makes no sense to try to print fine photos on a printer that doesn't have sufficient number of colors. That is a necessary requirement. Art of Women Photography is here. 2.5 hours late, my friend. 7:30 a.m. in Australia. I know it is late over there. We're about to get off here, off the air. But what I'm going to do, maybe once in a while, I'll do a slightly later live stream, maybe 6 o'clock. Tomorrow night, I'm going to be a guest with Drone Worship. Drone Worship, that is Dan, my good friend from Tampa, Florida. He's a big drone hobbyist, let's just call it. And he always tells us that he's not a professional, which is, you know, neither am I. I'm just here having fun. I'm just here having fun with everything that we do. Being professional means that this is my job and I have to make money and I have to clock in at 8 until 5 or whatever. No, I don't do that. I do this when I can. He does that when he can. And then tomorrow night, we're going to talk about the Bebop series of drones, everything that you can do with them. My gosh, they keep dropping in price. I can't even pass up buying another one. $194 for the drone. The Bebop 2 is a fantastic bird, let me tell you. The only thing it lacks is, you know, the videography is only 1080p, and it's not the greatest in the world, but it's so steady. I mean, come on. Who needs more than 1080p anyway? So anyway, I'm satisfied with it. One of these days I will move up. I promise you all. But anyway, so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about everything. So I'm trying to figure out how to get on the proper streaming software. It will not be what I use here for my live stream. It'll be something else. And he'll be able to link up to his live stream as a guest. And if you guys are interested, keep an eye out for Drone Worship and his dinghy, I think it's called. So tomorrow night sometime. I really am not sure what time it's going to be. Tomorrow my wife are going to be going to a party. It's going to be like a school staff sort of old-timer party. A lot of people that were staff members of my wife's school that are now retired and even still working there are going to meet up with a recently retired health tech young lady who retired. Finally, I call her young lady because she looks young. And we're going to head on over to her house around 1. We're going to have a great afternoon, and then I'll try to get back early enough to have Dan, my friend from Florida, hook me up with his live stream. It should be fun. If you like drones at all, if you're interested in anything to do with aerial photography, using the drone as your tool, then join us tomorrow night. I don't know when that's going to be, but you know, keep looking on YouTube to see if you can, you know, find the time. Maybe if I do find the actual time, maybe I'll do a little quickie and put it out for you guys to possibly join us. I'll put it definitely on Facebook, by the way. Okay, let's see. Lauren Marmer says, so when you use refillable cartridges, do you keep the plugs in when they are in the printer? Only the refilling plug. Okay, remember they must be vented. So it just depends. What are we talking about? What printer are we talking about, Lauren? Let me know, because it's very important which printer you're talking about. EPSON printers, they have both a vent. See, let me take this off. I'll go ahead and sacrifice this. I took it off. You notice there's a hole there now. That's your vent. And this is your fill plug right here. Over here. Here's your fill plug. And that's it. There's a vent hole here. That's it. All you got to do is fill the cartridge and keep that open. Now, other types of cartridges, they have, let me see if I have one here. Ah, here we go. R3000 cartridge. Vent plug. Vent plug. That's removed. Okay. Fill plug. That is kept in place when you're printing. Okay. Fill plug always is kept in place when you are printing. The vent plug, no, you remove it. Otherwise, you're going to then have no venting of your internal passages, and you will basically get locked. Max 2000 says, thank you for all your help, man. Hey, no problem at all. You know where to find us every Saturday evening. We'll be here for you. Art Women Photography, 6 o'clock start time is better for me than 6 a.m. here. Yeah, we'll see. This has really been working out well for the UK people, and I've noticed that you know, I haven't really had, well, it may be because of the time. I haven't had too many people from Australia here with us lately, and I think it could be the time, but I noticed that I'm getting a lot more onboard watchers once I switched over to a slightly earlier time. I think it helps also the folks here in the US. Cal Johnson just dropped a $5 super chat. Thank you so much. What tidbit of advice would you give to encourage printing? Oh, wow. I could write a book. Hold on a second. Lauren Marmer, Pro 100. Okay, so the Pro 100, you have nothing to worry about. There is no vent plug, only the fill plug. Once you remove that ball, if you buy your cartridges, you're here in the US, right? If you buy your cartridge set from the link that I have on my video descriptions, it's an eBay link for an 8-unit set of cartridges, already flushed, modified, ready to go with the good plugs, better than these, and the clip-on clips, okay, which are better than the original orange clip. If you threw those away, then you can't really refill your own cartridges. You just cannot. So get yourself a set of cartridges. That's what you need. They will come already with the little vent tab removed. Okay, once you do that, all you got to do is keep this covered when you're not using your cartridges. And that's what that clip is for. That comes with the cartridges. $60 for a set of 8. That gives you that set. Immediately you can begin to print with your third-party inks. Whatever inks you might want to use. It doesn't really matter what you use, as long as they're intended for the Pro 100. I suggest Precisioncolors Signature Edition simply because they just perform really great. They're as good as OEM in every aspect, except, of course, longevity. They cannot compete with that. Neither can any other ink set. I don't care who it is. You want color matching? Then use that ink, period. Here you go. This is printed through the driver, okay? Through the driver. This matches OEM results. There's nothing more I can add, right? So again, thank you so much, you guys, for hanging with me today. Okay, so she says, right, but the fill plugs always stay kept in. Yes, yes. The fill plugs only come out. Let me give you one really quick demonstration here. It'll be kind of virtual. When you are ready to fill a cartridge, what do you need to do? You need to cover that vent, that bottom exit port. So you attach your clip. That keeps the ink from pouring right back out. You're going to remove this plug. You're going to insert your needle and fill up your chamber. Plug it back up. All of this time, you still got that exit vent cover. By the way, you will have reset it before you begin to do any of that. Okay, reset it to full. Reset it to full. Attach the clip. Remove the plug. Fill the chamber. Plug it back up. Let it sit for a while. This will begin to drop slightly as both sides are equalized. Remove it. Top it off to about 1/8 inch from the top. Plug it back up. Wait a little longer. See if it drops any more. If it does, then add a little bit more ink. You want to have the sponge equalized, okay? The saturation level. Once it does that, if it is your first time you refilled and you want to make sure your ink flow is correctly flowing or your ink is correctly flowing at the correct rate, you're going to have to waste a little bit of ink. Get yourself a coffee cup or something you don't mind getting dirty, a paper cup, a tin can, whatever. Remove the orange clip. Hold it over that. Keep this plug in place. Remove the orange clip. Hold it over that. It may drip once, but then it'll stop. That means that this plug is sealing. Okay, now remove the plug. It will begin to drip. Drip, 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 drip. At that rate, drip, drip. Plug it back up. Drip, stop. Put the clip back on it. Remove the plug and top it back off. You wasted a couple of ml of ink to test ink flow. Okay. That's how you know that you will be providing your printhead with enough ink flow to meet any kind of demand your images might require. Okay, as far as ink. All right, so let's see what else you said. Yeah, keep the plugs in. PC Inks SE, yep. All right, so that is it, really. I told him, you know, dude, you can probably sit back on that ink set right now and you know, just basically live off of that. Pro-100 is the biggest seller Canon ever created. Okay, and if people want to print fantastic images, fantastic prints, creating fantastic prints from fantastic images at the lowest cost possible, I can't come up with a better combination than that. That's as good as it gets. So keep that in mind. I told him, look, you hit this out of the ballpark. I really did not have that huge a level of faith in this ink set at the beginning. I really didn't think it was going to be any better than the original older ink set, which was good, but you still had to profile in order to get it to match as close as possible. This one does right out of the box. What can I say? All right. Thank you so much again. Really appreciate you guys coming every single week just to hear me yap and talk. I really did not cover everything that I needed to cover tonight, but time just goes and I talk too much. I know that. But here's the catch. I want you guys to leave here with no more questions in your head, unless it's something I did not address. And that's the whole deal here. I want you guys to now go back to your print areas and be able to produce good prints without any kind of worry, without any kind of error, without any kind of hurdles or, you know, holes you fall into. No, I want you guys to be able to, from the get-go, produce great prints. Let me do the mistakes. I've made them all before. I just don't want you guys to repeat these same silly, in some cases, mistakes that I have made. Thank you so much. We'll see you the next time, Saturday evening. I got a bunch of videos that I have yet fully edited, but I will be able to have like almost daily videos for the rest of the next 5 days or so. Maybe I will take off tomorrow because I'm going to be doing the live stream with my friend. All right, let's go ahead and play some music, eh? Here we go. Play again. And we'll see you. I like the little country sound. I love it, love it, love it. All right, we'll jump over to the welcome screen. And that is it for me. Happy printing, everybody. Bye-bye.